Please wait. Don't abandon me here, I pleaded, a desperation in my voice echoing through the desolate mountainside. My husband's response was chillingly indifferent. Return when your leg has mended, he retorted coolly before turning his back on me, leaving me stranded amidst the rugged wilderness. Frantically, I cried out once more, a futile attempt to halt his departure, but his smirk and fleeting glance were all the acknowledgement I received before he vanished into the distance. Left alone, panic enveloped me as I realized the extent of my predicament. With no means of communication and my legs immobilized by plaster casts, I was utterly helpless. Reaching out futilely towards his retreating form, I watched in dismay as he disappeared from sight. The reality sank in. My husband had callously deserted me in this unforgiving terrain. Helplessly sprawled on the ground, I could only watch as he drove away, leaving me to confront my fears alone. My name is Jennifer, a 35-year-old office worker. In my small family unit resides my husband, Robert, a man 3 years my senior, who also toils away in an office setting. Our marriage has reached its 3rd year, yet the pitter-patter of little feet has yet to grace our home. In the realm of domestic duties, Robert adheres strictly to traditional gender roles, leaving the lion's share of household chores squarely on my shoulders. Not only does he shirk any involvement in domestic tasks, but he also exhibits a penchant for demanding my assistance with mundane requests, such as fetching the remote or preparing his tea, even when said items lie within arm's reach. In my initial attempts to rectify this imbalance, I reminded him of my own workload and implored him to lend a hand. His response, steeped in patriarchal entitlement, echoed through our home. I am the primary breadwinner. It is your duty to attend to such matters. Repeated entreaties for his cooperation were met with disdain, as Robert dismissed my appeals as mere nagging, punctuating his disapproval with ostentatious displays of frustration. Gradually, our interactions soured, his once warm morning greetings replaced by stony silence. Faced with his unyielding stance, I reluctantly assumed sole responsibility for our household chores, resigned to the reality of our domestic dynamic. I must confess, there are moments when the weight of exhaustion from work bears down heavily on me, and I find myself yearning for his assistance. Yet I've learned to endure it in silence, deeming it preferable to the alternative of facing his complaints or enduring his indifference. One fateful day, as I made my way to work, fate intervened in the form of a child teetering perilously close to the edge of a staircase at the train station. Without hesitation, I propelled myself forward, a warning cry escaping my lips as I intercepted the child, shielding him from a potentially calamitous fall. However, in my valiant effort, I too became ensnared in the precarious descent, my body twisting and contorting as gravity pulled us both downward. Amidst the chaotic whirlwind of motion, a sickening snap reverberated through the air, accompanied by searing agony that eclipsed any pain I had ever known. When the dizzying tumult finally subsided, I found myself cradling the stunned child in my arms, relief flooding through me as I assessed his unharmed form. Yet my own attempts to rise were thwarted by the excruciating protests of my limbs. Summoning the aid of station personnel, I implored them to summon an ambulance as I grappled with the throbbing anguish radiating from my broken leg. Transported to the hospital, I reached out to Robert, recounting the harrowing ordeal and beseeching him to join me. Forgive the inconvenience. It seems I've managed to get myself into quite the predicament, I murmured apologetically over the phone. Don't concern yourself with apologies. Let's focus on getting you home safely, came Robert's earnest response, his genuine worry providing a flicker of comfort amidst the chaos. What a thoughtful husband you have, remarked the nurse, her words dripping with admiration as she glanced at Robert. With a smug grin, he replied, "Oh, I always lend a hand around the house," a boastful claim that left me incredulous. Suppressing my astonishment, I opted for silence, unwilling to create a scene in the hospital room. However, upon our return home, Robert's demeanor underwent a drastic transformation. "Hey, I'm famished. Fetch me something to eat, and don't forget to iron this shirt," he barked, assigning me household chores without a hint of consideration. Confined to a wheelchair, I bristled at his demands, unable to comply with his requests. "What?" caged to see my predicament, I protested, frustration lacing my words. "You promised to take care of things while I was hospitalized." Taken aback by my reproach, Robert's retort was swift and cutting. "I only said that because you were in the hospital," he snapped, his tone laced with derision. "Just get it done. And let's be realistic here, you couldn't have possibly saved that kid. You're too clumsy, too slow." It became increasingly apparent that Robert harbored doubts about the veracity of my words. "How can you say something so cruel?" I countered, my voice tinged with hurt and disbelief. Unmoved, Robert's concern veered swiftly towards financial matters. "Does it really matter?" he retorted callously. "Are you taking time off work? What about your salary?" His words cut deep, emphasizing his prioritization of money over my well-being. Though I knew I would receive some form of compensation from my job during my absence, it would pale in comparison to my regular earnings. "You can't contribute to household chores or bring in a salary. You're utterly useless." His criticism stung, leaving me speechless and reeling from the unexpected onslaught. As I struggled to process his harsh words, Robert sank into the sofa with a disgruntled sigh, his discontent palpable. "Why did I ever marry you?" he muttered bitterly, his tone dripping with disdain. Bewildered by his hostility, I sought to defend myself. "I didn't choose to be in this condition," I protested weakly. "Enough with your excuses." Robert's retort was sharp and unforgiving. "If you have the energy to complain, then start pulling your weight around here. Surely you're capable of that much." His words struck a raw nerve, plunging me into a suffocating sense of despair. Unable to bear his callousness any longer, I found myself blurting out, "That's it. If this is how it's going to be, I'm going back to my parents' house." Robert appeared more than willing to accommodate my decision. "All right then, I'll take you there," he chirped, reaching for the car keys. With minimal preparation, I gathered only the essentials into a bag, relying on my crutches to navigate. However, Robert's assistance was conspicuously absent as I struggled to make my way to the car. "Come on, what's taking so long? Hurry up and get in," he grumbled impatiently, tossing my bag into the car with careless disregard. Irritation oozed from every pore as he settled into the driver's seat, clearly perturbed by the inconvenience. The journey to my parents' home, nestled amidst the mountains, stretched before us, a daunting 2-hour drive. Despite my misgivings about Robert's sudden willingness to accompany me, I had little choice but to rely on his assistance for the time being. As the city lights faded into the rearview mirror, Robert's sour disposition remained unchanged, his irritation palpable with every click of the tongue at each red light we encountered. Lost in contemplation, I resigned myself to pondering my options once I reached the safety of my parents' embrace. However, my reverie was shattered when the car abruptly halted. "What's happening? Did we run out of gas?" I queried, turning to Robert in confusion, only to be met with a venomous command. "Get out of the car here." Perplexed, I protested. "Here? Why? I can't be left stranded in the middle of nowhere." "Shut up. Don't come back until you're able to walk again." His words cut through the air like a whip, leaving me speechless and abandoned in the desolate expanse of the mountain road. Never in my wildest dreams had I envisioned such a nightmare scenario. Despite my frantic attempts to cling to the seatbelt and door, Robert callously ejected me from the car with a forceful shove. My pleas fell on deaf ears as he callously smirked, re-entered the vehicle, and sped off, leaving me stranded on the roadside. Paralyzed by shock and disbelief, I could do naught but cry out in desperation as Robert's car vanished into the distance, taking with it my belongings and any means of communication. Night was fast approaching, casting an ominous shadow over the desolate surroundings. With each passing moment, my sense of helplessness deepened, uncertainty gnawing at my core. Although I had informed my parents of my impending return, the prospect of their rescue felt increasingly remote. Left to my own devices, I resolved to crawl towards civilization, each agonizing inch a testament to my determination to survive. Yet, as exhaustion threatened to engulf me, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of approaching footsteps. A figure clad in jogging attire materialized before me, a beacon of salvation amidst the encroaching darkness. My desperate cries for help caught the attention of the approaching woman, who quickened her pace and hurried over to my side. "What happened? Why are you alone here, and what's with the state of your clothes?" she inquired, her concern evident as she took in the sight of my disheveled appearance and the dirt-streaked cast encasing my leg. Tears welled in my eyes as I recounted the events that had led to my predicament. Moved by my plight, the woman, whose name I would later learn was Patricia, wasted no time in offering assistance. "My home is nearby. I'll fetch my car. Just wait here," she reassured me, draping her windbreaker over my shoulders before hastening off. Gratitude overwhelmed me as I huddled beneath the shelter of her jacket, fervently praying for her swift return. True to her word, Patricia was soon back, her car idling nearby as she extended a helping hand. "Let's get you to the hospital first. Then we can figure out where you live," she suggested, her kindness a balm to my wounded spirit. Moved by her selflessness, I suggested we make a detour to my parents' home, fearing their worry for my well-being. Patricia readily agreed, her empathy a soothing presence as we embarked on the journey together. With each passing moment, our conversation deepened, bonding over shared indignation towards the cruelty I had endured at the hands of my husband, Robert. Before I knew it, we had arrived at my parents' doorstep, Patricia's comforting presence a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil. "Thank you so much for your kindness. Please come inside. Let me properly express my gratitude," I urged Patricia, extending an invitation into my home. Initially, she demurred, citing work commitments for the following day. However, recognizing my inability to navigate on my own, she graciously assisted me to the entrance. As we reached the threshold, my mother emerged, her expression a mix of concern and relief. Profusely thanking Patricia, she eventually persuaded her to step inside. Once within, my parents and I showered Patricia with gratitude, overwhelmed by her selfless act of compassion. Seated amidst the warmth of my family's embrace, I recounted the events that had led me back to their doorstep and Patricia's invaluable assistance. "What a despicable man. You should divorce him immediately," my father fumed, his anger palpable. "You need to rest," my mother interjected, her worry etched across her features. But I had a task at hand. "I need to call Robert," I declared, determination driving my actions. With my parents by my side, I reached for the home phone, steeling myself for the conversation that lay ahead. "You're home already. Come back as soon as you're healed. Who will take care of the house without you?" Robert's tone held no trace of remorse as his callous words echoed through the speakerphone, audible to both me and my enraged parents. Enraged by Robert's callous disregard, my father's voice thundered through the phone, seething with fury. "What nonsense is he spouting? He's got some nerve," he bellowed, his anger palpable even from a distance. Beside him, my mother's expression hardened, her disapproval evident. Despite the heated confrontation, Robert remained obstinate, his demands for my return to household duties unabated. The finality in my decision reverberated through the line as I declared, "It's over. Let's get a divorce." A heavy silence followed, punctuated only by Robert's resigned sigh. "Why does it have to come to this?" he lamented, shifting the blame onto me with practiced ease. Exhausted by the emotional turmoil, I terminated the call with a weary sigh, the weight of my decision hanging heavily in the air. In the aftermath, it took considerable effort to soothe my parents' frayed nerves, their anger simmering beneath the surface. The following day, the incessant ringing of the house phone filled the air, a silent testament to the unresolved turmoil brewing between Robert and me. Though the caller remained unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was Robert unwilling to accept the finality of our decision. The incessant ringing of the phone persisted, each call a jarring intrusion into my solitude. Despite my initial reluctance, a nagging suspicion crept in. Perhaps it wasn't Robert after all, given the timing during his work hours. Yielding to curiosity, I answered, only to be met with Robert's frantic voice on the other end. "Finally, why were you ignoring my calls? I need your help. I'm on the verge of being fired." Robert's words spilled out in a desperate torrent, his distress palpable even through the receiver. His plea fell on deaf ears as I coolly retorted, "And what exactly do you expect me to do about it? Your job is your responsibility, not mine," before disconnecting the call with a decisive click. "If he's facing the consequences of his actions, it's well deserved," I mused bitterly, refusing to entertain any further involvement in Robert's affairs. However, a startling revelation soon emerged. Patricia, the woman who had come to my aid, was Robert's mistress. As she listened to my tale during our encounter, a sense of familiarity began to dawn upon her. Her suspicions were confirmed when she overheard Robert's voice during my divorce call. Upon seeing his picture, her world shattered, her anguish mirroring my own shock and betrayal. Blindsided by Robert's infidelity, I seethed with resentment at being deceived and neglected. Yet, it was Patricia's fury that truly ignited a storm within me, her righteous anger far surpassing my own expectations. Together, we navigated the turbulent waters of betrayal, united in our shared sense of betrayal and indignation. As Patricia recounted, she first crossed paths with Robert in her workplace, a subsidiary of his company. Their initial interaction occurred during one of Robert's business visits, sparking a connection that quickly evolved into frequent rendezvous. Robert, keen to escalate their relationship beyond professional boundaries, disclosed his purported divorce history, a narrative reinforced by rumors circulating among their colleagues. Enticed by his seemingly genuine demeanor, Patricia succumbed to Robert's overtures, nurturing dreams of a future together based on his promises of marriage. Little did she know, behind his facade of sincerity lurked a deceitful man who not only concealed his marital status but callously abandoned his injured wife in the wilderness. Consumed by a potent blend of regret and fury at being duped by such a man, Patricia's visage twisted into a chillingly sinister smile. Determined to exact revenge for her betrayal, she orchestrated Robert's downfall, leveraging her connections to ensure his dismissal from his position. Following my decisive dismissal of Robert's pleas, Patricia reached out to relay the consequences of his actions. He's facing the repercussions now. My uncle, infuriated by his behavior, has terminated his employment, she revealed, her voice tinged with satisfaction at the fulfillment of her vengeance. The uncle Patricia referred to happened to be the president of Robert's company. As it turned out, Patricia and the president shared a familial bond. She was his niece. Patricia, grappling with health issues that restricted her ability to work extended hours, secured a part-time position at her uncle's subsidiary, conveniently located near her residence. During our conversation, Patricia revealed that she had been jogging in the mountains that day, a cost-effective alternative to gym memberships aimed at bolstering her physical strength. Interestingly, the CEO, who lacked children of his own, showered Patricia with affection and support, given their familial ties. However, Patricia had deliberately concealed this relationship from Robert, fearing potential complications due to their distinct surnames and disparate workplaces. "It's best to stay cautious," Patricia cautioned, her tone tinged with concern. My uncle mentioned Robert making inappropriate remarks. "I wouldn't be surprised if he attempts to visit you again." As Patricia had ominously predicted, Robert materialized at my parents' doorstep that very night, his persistent knocks echoing loudly through the stillness of the evening. His voice, strained with anger, reverberated through the door as he unleashed a barrage of accusations. "You're responsible for getting me fired. You need to come with me and explain everything to the boss and apologize." Robert's tirade was fueled by his belief that my alleged collusion with Patricia had led to his termination. In his skewed version of events, I had embellished details of his affair to Patricia, thereby triggering a misunderstanding with the boss. As the gravity of the situation dawned on me, I realized the true meaning behind Patricia's cryptic warning of Robert's inappropriate behavior. However, before I could formulate a response, my father, unaware of the brewing storm, had already swung open the front door, unwittingly inviting Robert's wrath into our home. "Enough with your excuses. How dare you demand an apology from my daughter after betraying her trust? You got what was coming to you. Now, get out." My father's voice thundered with righteous indignation as he forcefully ejected Robert from our doorstep, slamming the door shut and locking it behind him. Yet the commotion outside persisted, Robert's pleas for forgiveness echoing through the walls. Taking a deep breath, I addressed Robert through the intercom, determined to set the record straight. "Let me make something abundantly clear since you still seem oblivious. You believe you were fired for merely laying hands on the boss's niece. You're sorely mistaken." The boss thoroughly explained the situation from start to finish. From the CEO's standpoint, this wasn't just a run-of-the-mill affair. It was viewed as a parent company exploiting a subsidiary employee into an extramarital relationship. Your status as a part-time employee placed you in a vulnerable position, and your actions were deemed unacceptable. I continued, my tone unwavering. The CEO admonished you countless times, yet you remained fixated on the affair. Understand this. It wasn't merely about whom you were involved with this time. It was about the gross misconduct of a parent company exploiting its subsidiary. Regardless of the other party's identity, such behavior would warrant dismissal. If you can't grasp how ludicrous your claims are, you're deluding yourself. If you don't want to add arrest to your list of woes, leave now. And as for the divorce, be prepared to face legal consequences. I declared firmly, cutting through Robert's protest with unwavering resolve. Only then did a stunned silence descend upon the scene. With Robert's departure, tranquility settled once more over my parents' home. In the aftermath, I wasted no time in seeking legal recourse. Consulting with Patricia, we devised a plan to hold Robert accountable for his actions. I initiated divorce proceedings, determined to sever all ties with him. Additionally, Patricia and I jointly pursued legal action against Robert, seeking damages for the pain and suffering inflicted upon us. I sued Robert for the emotional anguish of betrayal and deception, while Patricia sought recompense for the emotional toll of being missold into a relationship under false pretenses. Together, we resolved to ensure that Robert faced the full consequences of his deceitful actions. After Robert's dismissal, he found himself in dire financial straits without any severance pay to fall back on. Desperate for assistance, he turned to his parents for help. However, his plea for financial aid fell on deaf ears when they learned of my decision to divorce him. Incensed by his actions, they refused to offer any support. Left with no other options, Robert's parents reluctantly arranged for him to secure employment at a company they were acquainted with. In this new role, Robert found himself at the lowest rung of the corporate ladder, stripped of the perceived superiority he once held as a member of a parent company or subsidiary. His presence was a constant reminder of his transgressions, and he was subjected to menial tasks and disdainful glances on a daily basis. Despite Robert's humiliating circumstances, neither Patricia nor I harbored any sympathy for him. Our sole concern was ensuring that he met his financial obligations, particularly in terms of alimony. We remained indifferent to his treatment and the source of his income, focused solely on securing the compensation we rightfully deserved. With time, my fractured relationship with Robert healed, and I found solace in the company of Patricia's friends. Together, we pursued legal action, resulting in a favorable outcome that provided us with a substantial sum in damages. Buoyed by this success, we began making plans for a well-deserved trip, eager to leave the past behind us and embrace a brighter future.
My husband suddenly starts ranting about how he refuses to be the breadwinner for a housewife, spouting things that make no sense. Before I know it, he's packing up my belongings. "What are you doing?" I ask, bewildered. "I'm asking you to leave this house until you realize what you've done," he replies coldly. "What?" I can barely process his words. My name is Mary, a 27-year-old office worker. I recently landed my dream job at a cosmetics company and threw myself into my work with enthusiasm. My dedication paid off. I received excellent feedback from my boss and earned a promotion. For someone my age, my salary is pretty impressive. I've been married to my husband Tom for a year. We're the same age, but he earns less than I do. It doesn't bother me, but I've come to realize that it's a sensitive issue for him. Tom never brings it up directly, but whenever our conversations drift towards work, he quickly changes the subject. I think it reminds him that his salary is lower than mine. He often seems unmotivated about his job, saying, "I don't have a great job, so I've learned to avoid talking about my work too much at home." Despite this, Tom does his share of the housework and is great at cooking and cleaning. He has a gentle nature and we communicate well, so I've always felt that we're a strong couple. But now I'm beginning to wonder if I was the only one who felt that way. One day, I wasn't feeling well and experienced severe nausea. Concerned, I went to the hospital and found out I was pregnant. Excited, I immediately shared the news with my husband. He was overjoyed, and seeing his happiness made me even more thrilled. I thought to myself, we're going to build a loving, warm family. Decided to take maternity leave about 6 weeks before my due date, wanting to give myself time to rest since it was my first pregnancy. However, around that time, I noticed a subtle change in my husband's attitude. When he came home one evening, I greeted him with a smile. "Welcome home." He looked at me lagging on the sofa and remarked, relaxing on the sofa again, "Huh? You've got it easy." His tone surprised me. At first, I brushed it off, assuming he was just stressed from work. But as the days passed, his attitude toward me grew colder and more distant. "Hey, where's my dinner?" "Sorry, I'm not feeling well today, so I picked up some pre-made food from the supermarket." "What? You've got to be kidding me. After a long day at work, you're serving me supermarket pre-made food." His sudden outburst caught me off guard, and I was too exhausted to argue. Some days I felt so sick that I could barely do anything. Even the smell of food made me nauseous. On one of those days, I sent my husband a message explaining how I was feeling and asked if he could either cook for himself or grab something to eat. He didn't respond, but I saw that he'd read the message, so I assumed everything was fine. I crawled into bed and fell asleep for a few hours. When I woke up, it was midnight. I got up to go to the bathroom and noticed the light was on in the living room, with voices drifting from inside. Curious, I walked in and was surprised to find that my husband had brought some of his colleagues home with him. "Oh, look, the selfish princess has finally woken up," one of his colleagues said with a smirk. Another added, "Sorry to disturb you." I greeted them politely, but I was shocked. I quickly pulled my husband aside into the hallway. "What's going on? Why would you bring people over this late?" He shrugged. "What's the big deal? We went out for drinks, and when that wasn't enough, I invited them back here. You know I'm pregnant, right?" I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. "So what? I'm not asking you to do anything risky. But could you please consider the impact this is having on my mental health?" "What? You're overreacting. If you had cooked dinner, I wouldn't have needed to go out for drinks with them. So you're the one responsible for me bringing them home." His reasoning made no sense to me. If you have so much energy, why don't you make something to eat and serve it to everyone? "I can't, I'm still feeling sick." "You're just being selfish. You're ruining the fun for everyone. Go back to your bedroom and get some rest." With that, he turned and went back into the living room. I couldn't take it anymore. Frustrated, I decided to move back to my parents' house. I explained the situation to my obstetrician and asked if I could give birth near them. Fortunately, she knew an obstetrician close to my parents' place and promptly provided me with a letter of introduction. I left a note on the table saying, "I'm going home for a while to give birth." My husband immediately started calling and messaging, but I chose to ignore him. About a week later, I received a message from him saying, "I'm sorry. You can stay at your parents' house and rest before the birth." Although I still hadn't forgiven him, I was relieved to hear his apology. I stayed at my parents' house and it made a huge difference. I felt much better. My nausea subsided and my appetite returned. After that, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. My parents were thrilled to welcome their granddaughter, and my husband came to the hospital as well. He was overjoyed to hold our daughter, exclaiming, "She's so cute," and showed genuine concern for my health. I felt relieved, thinking that he had returned to his caring and gentle self. Once I recovered, I spent about 2 weeks at my parents' house before moving back to the home I shared with my husband. When I returned, he eagerly took on the task of feeding our daughter after work. Initially, he was very involved, helping with diaper changes and bath times. His enthusiasm and support were incredibly encouraging. I felt relieved, believing that my husband and I would be able to live together harmoniously once more. However, about 2 months after our daughter was born, his attitude began to shift again. It seemed to be related to our baby's increased nighttime crying. Until then, she had been sleeping soundly, but now her cries were frequent and disruptive, waking us up regularly throughout the night. The lack of sleep began to take a toll on my husband, who became increasingly stressed and less supportive with childcare. He even said, "I'll sleep on the couch," and left me to handle everything on my own. Additionally, he started coming home late from work, which only deepened my mistrust and concern about our relationship. Once I saw him acting this way, I began to notice many other things about him. I started expressing my frustration about his lack of involvement in raising our child. My husband appeared increasingly stressed, and one day he made a startling comment. "Who do you think is providing for you?" "What?" I asked, confused. "It's because of me that you're able to stay home and live comfortably. You should show more respect for your husband." I was taken aback. "I appreciate that you were supportive in the beginning. But lately, when our daughter cries, you just brush it off and say, 'Hey, she's crying,' without offering any help." "No, that's not what I'm talking about," he snapped. "What do you mean by silly?" I asked, puzzled. I'm the boss in this house and you're showing me disrespect. I don't understand what you're referring to, I said, genuinely confused. I'm the one who earns the money, so you need to show me more respect. He then began to say things that didn't make sense, like I'm not going to be the breadwinner for a housewife. Without warning, he started packing up my belongings. What are you doing? I asked, bewildered. I'm asking you to leave this house until you regret what you've done, he said as he hastily stuffed my clothes into a bag and tried to force me out. Fine, I'll go. Just let me pack my things myself, I responded, starting to fold my clothes and place them in my bag. Once I was done packing, I picked up my daughter and saw him throw my box out the front door. Come back when you've had time to reflect on your actions, he said, and then he locked the front door behind him. Left with no other option, I returned to my parents' house. After leaving my daughter in my mother's care, I went to the city office to pick up the divorce papers. The next day, I went back to my husband's house and rang the doorbell. Oh, you're back already? I suppose you've realized you can't manage without me. All I need is for you to show me you're sorry. If you get down on your knees, I might forgive you, my husband said with a smirk. Ignoring his demands, I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and handed them to him. What? Divorce papers? Why? I thought you were sorry, he exclaimed, confused. After everything you've said and done, I have nothing to apologize for. I haven't done anything wrong. I can't stay married to you any longer, I replied firmly. My husband was clearly taken aback, not expecting me to follow through with the divorce. He then said something that made little sense. But you're okay with this. It's going to be tough for you as a single mother. You don't even have a job. How will you support your daughter? What are you talking about? I didn't lose my job, I replied. What? You've been home all this time. I thought you quit because you got pregnant. Oh, so that's what you've assumed. Who said I quit my job? I'm just on maternity and childcare leave. What? It seemed my husband believed that women automatically quit their jobs after giving birth. Oh no, I thought you had become a stay-at-home wife, he said, realizing his misunderstanding. Oh, I see. So you thought you could one-up me, I said. My husband's face went pale with shock. It was clear he was deeply hurt. He had always been proud, and when we were both working, my higher income seemed to bother him. I guess he just assumed I had quit my job rather than being on leave. I was thoroughly disgusted by his behavior. Husbands and wives should be equal, I told him. I'm exhausted from dealing with your inferiority complex. I never cared about who made more money. Realizing the gravity of his actions, my husband broke down in tears and pleaded, I'm sorry. Please don't divorce me. But by then it was too late. I asked him to sign the divorce papers and left the house. We later finalized the divorce through our lawyers. I had recorded my ex-husband's verbal abuse as a precaution, so I was able to use it as evidence to secure alimony for the harassment I endured. Without my income, he couldn't afford the rent on our apartment, so he had to move to a cheaper place. Interestingly, when he brought his colleagues over that night, they had no idea I was pregnant. When they saw my belly, they were all taken aback. After our divorce, rumors spread at his workplace that he'd been dumped by his wife. My ex-husband must be feeling a lot of shame now, and he totally deserves it. Meanwhile, I took maternity leave and returned to work, now living at my parents' house. They've been incredibly supportive as I balance work and raising my child. Although my marriage didn't work out, I'm happier than ever thanks to the fulfilling work I love and the joy on my daughter's face. I'm committed to my career and excited to watch my daughter grow up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
Grace, you even realize what you've done. What kind of person just abandons their duties as a wife and causes problems for William? You're a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. Mother, Grace responded calmly, I have my reasons for leaving. It doesn't matter. Her mother-in-law snapped. We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know the address. Grace thought to herself, I'm sure she still doesn't know anything. Well, it's a good thing she's in the dark. No, thank you, Grace said firmly. My name is Grace. I'm 35 years old, and I work in an office. My husband, William, and I have been married for 5 years. He's now 40, 5 years older than me. I used to date older men, but William's generosity and kindness drew me to him, and we eventually got married. For a while, our marriage was satisfying, but before long, a shadow fell over our peaceful life. I lost my job. William was suddenly laid off too. The company's business had taken a hit from the recession. I never imagined he would lose his job, especially since he worked for a big company. I thought we'd be financially secure for life, but it turns out that nothing is guaranteed in this world. We became financially strained, and I decided to return to work immediately. I contacted the company I had worked for before getting married, and luckily, they rehired me. They needed someone to fill in for an employee who had just gone on maternity leave. I was relieved that at least we had some income, but William struggled to find a new job. It's tough for a middle-aged man to start over. Eventually, he had no choice but to take on part-time work as a day laborer, bringing in about $700 a month. I was back at work, but my salary wasn't much either. We were barely making ends meet. William, I suggested one evening, the rent here is too high. Maybe we should move to a cheaper place and save some money. It would help us manage better if we lower our fixed costs. We had been living comfortably in a nice apartment thanks to William's previous high income, but now I thought it was time to face reality and find a more affordable place. But William rejected my idea firmly. No, we're not moving. Why not? I asked, confused. If we move to a smaller, cheaper apartment, Mom will start asking questions. So what? I countered. Why not just tell her the truth? We're having a hard time making ends meet because you're out of work. William's face turned red with anger. Don't you dare tell my mother I'm unemployed. Your salary and my earnings are enough to pay the rent. We'll leave it at that. I was shocked and confused. It seemed like he cared more about his pride in our home than about protecting our marriage. Even if we could cover the rent, we were still struggling with our finances. I had suggested moving to save money, but William wouldn't budge, and I eventually gave up on the idea. Life continued to be difficult, and then one day, William made an unbelievable comment to me. "This is all we have for dinner today?" he asked, incredulous. "We used to have more dishes. Just because you've started working doesn't mean you can slack off on your duties. Don't be lazy and manage this better." His words made me furious, and I couldn't hold back my retort. I have no choice. We were struggling to make ends meet. I was doing my best to manage both the house and my job, but someone's unnecessary pride in staying in this apartment left me no choice but to cut back on food expenses. "Or you could just make more money, and then everything would be just the way you want it," I remarked provocatively. William's face flushed with anger. "What the hell? Don't you dare talk to me like that. Just wait and see. I'll land a job at a good company and make more money than you." William's temper flared, but I told myself that if this sparked his motivation, I could endure his outbursts. I convinced myself it was fine, but reality soon set in. Despite his determination, William couldn't find a new job. He ended up working part-time as a day laborer, unable to secure anything better. Even with renewed motivation, the job market proved harsh. I could understand if he had taken the time to study and earn a qualification, but he hadn't. He simply worked part-time. Each interview led to rejection, and the humiliation of bowing down to younger interviewers wore him down. Eventually, William stopped looking for a job altogether, though he still believed he could earn more than me. By this point, I was disappointed and had already given up on the idea that he would turn things around. But my worries didn't stop with William. Earlier today, I received yet another phone call, this time from my mother-in-law. She called without hesitation, despite knowing I was at work. When I checked my phone during lunch, I saw over 10 missed calls. When I finally returned her call, her voice was sharp from the very first word. "Why didn't you answer the phone right away? I told you the other day that I'm at work, didn't I?" "Work? You call that working? My needs should come first." Since losing her husband a year ago, my mother-in-law had been calling me constantly. I understood she was lonely and felt I should support her, but all she ever talked about was how it's a wife's duty to support her husband. When she found out I had started working, she became furious and wouldn't stop calling. While I was at work, my phone rang again. Did you talk to William about this properly? You can't even bother to return my calls. I'm sorry, I said, trying to keep my tone calm, but it's difficult for us to live with you right now. I'm not asking for your opinion, she snapped. William won't object to it. Actually, William says it's too difficult, I explained. Besides, we're having some financial issues. Financial issues? How can that be? William works for a big company. They pay him well, so you two must be rich, right? I was at a loss for words. William had been adamant that I shouldn't tell my mother-in-law the truth, so I couldn't explain our situation. She thought I was being selfish for working, convinced that I was lying about our financial struggles. Her constant calls were stressful, not just when I was at work, but even at night. A wife's first priority should be to support her husband, she often lectured. Taking care of your husband means taking care of his mother too. Why haven't you visited me lately? What's wrong with you? I work full-time, and I'm exhausted, I explained. William has been working part-time on weekends, so our schedules don't match. I'm sorry, but we're both so busy that it's hard to find time. Your schedules? But William is off on weekends. You could come then, couldn't you? My mother-in-law was clearly frustrated and kept pressing me. I felt it was time to tell her the truth about William. Actually, William works on weekends. What do you mean? She demanded. Just as I was about to reveal the truth, William, who had been lying on the sofa watching TV, rushed over and grabbed the phone from me. Mom, I'm sorry I haven't been able to visit you lately, he said smoothly. I'm working on a big project right now and have been putting in extra hours on weekends. I'll come visit as soon as things settle down. With that, he ended the call and turned to me, his expression stern. What were you doing? He asked, his voice low. Were you trying to tell my mom? I just think it's better to tell the truth, I replied, frustrated. If you keep this up, she'll keep nagging me because she doesn't know what's really going on. I'm sorry to hear that, but don't you dare tell my mom, William warned. That's enough, I shot back. You need to swallow your pride and tell her the truth. Shut up, I'm the one keeping us afloat, so you should be thanking me instead of talking back, he snapped, then stormed off to his room. I was on the verge of breaking down. The financial strain, combined with the pressure from both William and his mother, had pushed me to my limits. William claimed his part-time job was too demanding for him to do any housework, but he only worked on weekends and one day during the week. I knew he was capable of finding a better job or at least helping out around the house, but he chose not to. How can you do nothing at home and expect me to handle all the chores on top of everything else? I had finally reached my breaking point. I decided to leave for a while and return to my parents' house for a week. I wanted William to experience just how hard it was to manage the household alone. When I told my parents about our situation, they advised me to consider a divorce, but I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage that easily. We had been in love once, and we had been married for 5 years. If I was going to end it, I wanted to be sure I had done everything I could to make it work. After I left, William called me. When are you coming back? Where's my mail? I will be home for a while, I replied firmly. You'll have to do all the housework while I'm gone. Don't be ridiculous. Just come home and do the chores. No, I won't. Now you'll see how hard it is to handle everything on your own. You clean the house, do the laundry, cook, do it all yourself. It's important for you to understand just how much I've been doing while also working full-time. I ignored William's calls, deciding not to engage. Staying at my parents' house was a relief. For the first time in a long while, I shared the housework with my mom and dad. My mother would say, "You must be exhausted," as she served up home-cooked meals. I felt so grateful not having to do anything, with meals appearing as if by magic. I spent about a week at my parents' house, and honestly, I wanted to stay longer. But commuting from there to my office was challenging. It took an hour and a half each way. Eventually, I thought William must have realized by now how hard it was to manage the housework alone. So I decided it was time to return home. I was worried the house would be a mess, but when I walked in, I was surprised to find it cleaner than I expected. Still, something felt off. I had a sinking feeling and went straight to William's room. The closet was empty. His clothes and suitcases were gone. It hit me that he might have gone to his mother's place, so I called him. "What do you want now?" he answered, his tone cold. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm at my parents' house." "You left right after I did, didn't you?" I said, trying to make sense of it. "That's right," he admitted. What did you expect? You shouldn't have left in the first place. I'm not going back to that house. What do you mean? I asked, confused and hurt. I'm going to live with my mom. In fact, we're moving into a new apartment. I have no idea what you're talking about, I stammered, at a loss for words. Suddenly, the voice on the other end of the line changed. Hey Grace, my mother-in-law's voice cut in sharply. Do you have any idea what you've done? How dare you abandon your duties as a wife and cause trouble for William? You're such a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. Mother, I had my reasons for leaving. I tried to explain. It doesn't matter, she interrupted. We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know where it is. I realized she still had no idea what was really going on. This could work to my advantage, but I had to be firm. No, thank you. What? She asked, clearly shocked. I said no. I repeated, I'm not going. Are you serious? William is going to live with me. If you don't come here, you'll have to be alone. You've been relying on him, haven't you? Don't worry, I replied calmly. I can manage on my own. If we're not living together, there's no reason for us to stay married. I'm divorcing him. What? The word divorce clearly stunned both my mother-in-law and William. Their surprise was palpable through the phone. Grace, there's no need to mention divorce, William pleaded. I can't stay married to you anymore, I said, my resolve firm. I need to get rid of a husband like you as soon as possible. My mother-in-law snapped. How dare you talk to William like that? We don't want a life with you either, so fine. William, just get the divorce. No, William protested, but I cut him off. I'll have the divorce papers ready. You'll regret this, and it'll be too late for apologies. Same to you, I shot back before the call ended abruptly. I knew they would probably show up with the divorce papers soon, but I was relieved. Things were finally going the way I wanted. William's refusal to change made my decision clear. There was no need for us to stay together any longer. I decided to pack my bags while waiting for my mother-in-law to arrive. A few hours later, she showed up alone. Oh, William isn't here, she remarked, looking around. He doesn't need to be, I replied. Here you go, she said, handing me the divorce papers. I already had him fill out his section. Now, you just need to complete yours. As I took the papers, I noticed that William's handwriting looked shaky, as if written with trembling hands. My William is such a wonderful man, my mother-in-law continued, her voice filled with disdain. Even with a horrible wife like you, he was reluctant to get a divorce. I'll never forgive you for causing trouble for such a great person. I hope you live a miserable life and regret this. While I filled out my part of the form, she continued her tirade. William's pride had kept him from telling his mother the truth, even at the end. What a pathetic man he was. What happened to your house? I noticed it's empty. If you want to come back, there's no place for you, she sneered. I won't be coming back, I responded calmly. How much did you get for it? It was old, so it must have sold for cheap. That's none of your business, I said, tired of her prying. But since you're so curious, it was about $50,000. Not much, but enough for a comfortable retirement. William will pay for our new apartment, she bragged. Oh, so you were surprised he got approved? I asked, raising an eyebrow. William is a high-class person. It's only natural, she huffed. So, you put the money in William's account, I pressed. How did you know that? That's not important, she snapped. Stop asking questions and remember, you're just a divorced woman now. It's too late to hold on to him. Don't worry, I said, signing the papers with a flourish. I've already agreed to the divorce. My mother-in-law snorted and stormed out, clearly irritated. As she left, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was finally free from both her and William. I gathered the rest of my belongings and moved them to my parents' house, where I discovered a fresh start and the peace I had longed for. When I finally left, I managed to provoke my mother-in-law just enough to escape the burden of poverty they tried to impose on me. She insisted there was no way I'd get any of William's assets, but I couldn't help but remember the look on William's pale face during our discussions about the division of property. It still makes me chuckle. Then, about 2 years later, I received a call early one morning from an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered, only to hear the voice of my ex-mother-in-law. Oh, Grace, please help me, she cried. Mother, I replied coldly, you can't keep calling me that. We're strangers now. Don't say that. I'm in trouble. Oh, can't pay the rent? Savings running low? I asked, already guessing the situation. Yes, she admitted, her voice trembling. William didn't tell you about our financial problems until we were broke, did he? Oh, I knew, I said, unimpressed. He tried to hide it, didn't he? But every time I wanted to speak up, William told me not to. I'm sorry, Grace, I didn't know anything. I apologize, but please come back. I don't want to, I said firmly. William never changed, no matter how much I tried, and you always bullied me. I don't want to spend another minute with someone like you. Please don't say that. I don't have anything to eat anymore. I'm really desperate. According to my ex-mother-in-law, William had continued to put on airs, refusing to reveal their financial struggles. He'd been using the $50,000 from selling their family home to pay rent, splurging on expensive groceries and fancy meals to keep up appearances. It wasn't long before the money was gone, leaving them penniless. He got what he deserved, didn't he? I said, unfazed. Why don't you drop your pride and live modestly in a cheaper apartment? No, it wasn't supposed to be like this, she wailed. I was supposed to live a comfortable life with my elite son. Her cries fell on deaf ears. I quietly hung up the phone and blocked her number, taking the extra step of getting a restraining order just in case. I had no interest in being their crutch anymore. They'd always leaned on someone else, whether parents or children, never learning to stand on their own. I, on the other hand, was determined to live independently. With that resolve, I got my life back on track, focusing on my own happiness and well-being. William and his mother could continue their unbalanced, delusional lives without me. I'm so glad Grace could sever ties with such toxic people. Now she's free to lead an independent life, and who knows, maybe she'll meet a wonderful man in the future. Let's wish her a happy life from now on. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this story. See you in the next video.
Do you really believe you could just uproot your parents and move them into our home without even consulting me first? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Ryan, my husband of 6 years, glanced up from his laptop with a smirk that had become all too familiar and despised. Oh, Amelia, don't be so dramatic, he replied. It's just for a while, and besides, it's not like you have a say in this. His words struck me like a slap in the face. This house, a charming 2-story nestled in a quiet suburb, wasn't just any house. It was the home my grandparents had left me. It was the place where I had envisioned raising our son, Lucas, away from the toxicity of Ryan's family. You do remember that this house is in my name, right? I retorted, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Ryan's expression faltered, his smugness giving way to uncertainty. Just as our 2-year-old Lucas toddled into the room, I forced a smile for his sake. He was blissfully unaware of the tension. I'm not okay with this, Ryan. Your parents have never respected me or our space. Why now? I struggled to keep my voice steady. Ryan shrugged indifferently, stoking my frustration. Their family, Amelia. You wouldn't understand. The word family echoed in my mind mockingly. My own family, who ran a small but beloved coffee shop in town, had always been my sanctuary. The doorbell rang, interrupting our standoff. Through the peephole, I saw them. Ryan's parents, suitcases in tow, ready to invade our lives. Fine, Ryan, let them in. But this isn't over, I hissed, handing Lucas to him before opening the door. Amelia, darling, cried Ryan's mother, sweeping past me without a second glance. His father followed, a stern man who had barely acknowledged me since our wedding day. As they settled in, making themselves comfortable in my living room, I felt a sense of intrusion that was all too familiar. This was just the beginning, I realized. But as I watched them, something within me shifted. I was done being the compliant daughter-in-law bending to their whims. Retreating to the kitchen, my mind raced. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I was ready to fight for it. The following days turned into a blur of unwelcome changes. Ryan's mother, Elaine, had a way of making her presence known in the most suffocating manner. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized my parenting, and treated our home as if it were her own. Lucas shouldn't be eating that, Amelia. It's not healthy. Elaine chided one morning as I prepared Lucas's breakfast. Returning a sharp retort, I felt the familiar sting of her judgment. He's fine, Elaine. It's just cereal, I sighed, shaking my head. In our house, we believe in a proper diet. You really should learn. Her comments were like needles, each one pricking at my patience. Ryan, as usual, was of no help, buried in his work and oblivious to the growing tension. One evening, as I put Lucas to bed, Elaine barked into his room. He's still not sleeping through the night. You must be doing something wrong. Her words were a slap in the face, undermining my efforts as a mother. I'm doing the best I can, I snapped, unable to contain my frustration. Your best isn't good enough. Maybe if you had a real job and some structure in your life, she retorted. I felt the surge of anger. This is my house, Elaine. You're a guest here. Don't forget that. Her laugh was cold and dismissive. Oh dear, Ryan never mentioned how delusional you are. This is his house too, and as his mother, I have every right to be here. The following day, I reached my breaking point. I found Elaine in Lucas's room, going through his drawers. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. I'm just organizing. This room is a mess, she replied, not even bothering to look at me. That's it. I want you out of my house now, I exclaimed, feeling a mix of fury and desperation. Elaine turned to face me, her expression one of mock surprise. Your house? Oh, sweetie, you're just the wife. This is Ryan's house too, and he wants us here. I stormed out of the room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Ryan's betrayal, Elaine's intrusiveness, the way they dismissed my feelings. It was all too much. I had grown tired of being pushed around, weary of my home being invaded by people who had no respect for me. That night, as I lay in bed, a plan began to form in my mind. I was going to take back control of my life, my home, and my son's future. Ryan and his parents had crossed a line, and it was time for them to learn that I wasn't going to be their doormat any longer. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. A few days later, Ryan dropped a bombshell during an already tense dinner. My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations, he said nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I felt my blood boil. Longer, Ryan? We never discussed them staying in the first place, I objected. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It's just for a few more weeks. What's the big deal? The big deal is that your mother treats me like an intruder in my own home. I snapped, my frustration reaching its peak. Elaine, overhearing our conversation, chimed in with her usual condescending tone. Amelia, you're overreacting. We're family. You should be more accommodating. Their words echoed in my mind, fueling a growing resolve. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I called my brother Alex, who had always been my confidant. They're taking over my life, Alex. I can't take it anymore. I confessed, choking back tears. Alex's voice was firm and supportive. Amelia, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them bully you. It's your house, your rules. His words were the push I needed. I decided to confront Ryan, but this time I would be prepared. I gathered evidence of Elaine's overbearing behavior, the rearranged kitchen, the disrupted routines, her constant belittling comments. Confrontation day arrived. I waited until Elaine and Ryan were in the living room. We need to talk now, I announced, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ryan looked up, surprised by my tone. What's this about, Amelia? He asked. It's about your parents, Ryan. Their constant interference, their disrespect for my boundaries. It ends today, I declared, holding up my list of grievances. Elaine scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to help. Help by undermining me at every turn, by treating me like I don't matter in my own home. I countered, my anger palpable. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Amelia, they're my parents. We can't just kick them out, he protested. No, Ryan, they're guests in my home, and they've overstayed their welcome. Either they leave, or I do with Lucas. I ultimatumed, my resolve unwavering. The room fell silent, the gravity of my words hanging in the air. I saw the flicker of realization in Ryan's eyes, but it was Elaine who spoke first. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her facade slipping. "Watch me," I retorted, my voice laced with determination. That night, Ryan's parents packed their bags. As they left, Elaine shot me a venomous look. "You'll regret this, Amelia," she warned. But as the door closed behind them, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The days following Elaine and her husband's departure were eerily quiet. Ryan's demeanor had shifted to one of cold detachment, his interactions with me minimal and strained. I found solace in the peace of my reclaimed home and the joyous laughter of Lucas. One evening, as Lucas played with his toys, Ryan announced, "I've got to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few weeks." His tone was indifferent, as if our strained relationship had taken a backseat to his career. "Fine," I replied curtly, barely concealing my relief at the prospect of his absence. After Ryan left, the house felt different, liberating even. I started to revert the changes Elaine had imposed, each alteration feeling like a small victory. But the true turning point came when I stumbled upon a series of emails on Ryan's laptop, which he carelessly left open. They detailed an affair, an ongoing betrayal that cut deeper than any of his mother's snide remarks. Anger, hurt, and a sense of betrayal churned within me. I decided it was time for Ryan to face the consequences of his actions. I began to meticulously plan my next moves, each step calculated to ensure that Ryan and his family paid for their deceit and manipulation. The first step was to secure my financial and legal standing. I contacted a lawyer, explained my situation, and started the proceedings for what was now an inevitable divorce. Next, I turned my attention to the house, the symbol of my grandparents' legacy and my independence. I reached out to a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house quickly and quietly," I told her. She was taken aback but sensed the urgency in my voice. "Are you sure about this, Amelia? This is a big decision," she cautioned. "I've never been more sure of anything." I replied with a resolve born of betrayal and newfound strength. The house went on the market, and within days, offers began to roll in. The thought of Ryan returning to find his precious control stripped away brought a bitter satisfaction. In the midst of this, I reconnected with my family, drawing strength from their support. "We're here for you no matter what," my father assured me as I watched Lucas play, innocent and unaffected by the turmoil. I made a silent vow to protect his happiness at all costs. Ryan's return loomed on the horizon, but I was no longer the woman he had left behind. I was ready to confront him, armed with the truth and a plan to reclaim my life. The day Ryan returned was marked with a tension that hung thick in the air. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, envisioning every possible outcome. Yet my heart raced as I heard his key turn in the lock. "Amelia, I'm home," Ryan called out, his voice echoing through the now unfamiliar space. I emerged from the kitchen, my posture rigid. "Welcome back, Ryan. We need to talk," I announced. He glanced around, noticing the changes I had made. "What's going on?" "The house looks different," he remarked. I didn't flinch. "I sold the house, Ryan. It's no longer ours." His face contorted with disbelief. "You did what?" "You can't just sell our house without telling me," he protested. "It's my house, Ryan. And after what I discovered, I don't think you have a say anymore." I said my piece, my tone steady but laced with simmering anger. He scoffed, trying to regain his composure. "What are you talking about? The affair, Ryan?" "I know everything," I revealed, watching as his facade crumbled. His attempt at denial was weak and short-lived. "Amelia, it's not what you think," he pleaded. "I think it's exactly what it looks like. You betrayed me, our family," I retorted, the hurt evident in my tone. Ryan's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're overreacting. We can work through this," he insisted. "There's no we anymore, Ryan. I'll file for divorce," I declared, handing him the papers. The ensuing conversation was a blur of accusations and denials. But I stood my ground. The man I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger fueled by selfish desires. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a sense of liberation mixed with apprehension. I had taken the first step towards a new life, but the battle was far from over. In the following weeks, the reality of our situation became public. Ryan's parents, once so imposing and confident, were now caught in the crossfire of their son's indiscretions. Their attempts to contact me were met with silence. I had severed all ties, focusing solely on Lucas and the finalization of the divorce. The day of the court hearing arrived. Ryan looked defeated, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him as the judge granted the divorce and custody of Lucas to me. I felt a sense of justice. Ryan's plea for reconciliation after the hearing fell on deaf ears. "You made your choice, Ryan. Now live with it," I said, turning away from him for the last time. The news of our divorce and Ryan's affair spread, affecting his reputation and relationships. His parents, once so proud and judgmental, were now shunned by those who had once respected them. As I walked out of the courthouse, holding Lucas's hand, I realized that this was not just an end but a new beginning. It was a fresh start for me and my son, free from deceit and manipulation. The future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. Life after the divorce felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel into the light. I had regained control, not just of the house, which was now sold, but of my life. Lucas, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities, thrived in the love and stability I provided. My days were busy but fulfilling, with my focus now on rebuilding our lives and managing the coffee shop, which had become my sanctuary. However, the shadow of Ryan and his parents lingered. One day, as I was closing the shop, Ryan appeared, looking disheveled and desperate, a stark contrast to the composed man I had once known. "Amelia, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded, his eyes searching mine for a hint of the compassion that once existed. I hesitated, the sight of him stirring a mix of emotions. "What do you want, Ryan?" I asked, my voice tinged with embarrassment. "I can't afford the alimony and child support. I lost my job because of the scandal, and my parents, they broke too," he confessed. His words were like a cold splash of reality. "That's not my problem, Ryan. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences," I said firmly, closing the chapter of our shared past for good. As I walked away, leaving Ryan standing alone, I felt a sense of closure. The journey had been painful, filled with betrayal and heartache, but it had led me to a place of strength and independence. Life moved on. Lucas grew, his laughter and curiosity filling our home with joy. The coffee shop flourished, becoming a hub of warmth and community. As for me, I found contentment in the simple pleasures, the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of Lucas's giggles, and the support of friends and family. Ryan and his parents became distant memories, their legacy a cautionary tale of the consequences of betrayal and selfishness. My journey had taught me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. As I locked the shop that evening, I looked up at the sky, its hues of orange and pink signaling the end of another day. I smiled, holding Lucas's hand tightly. Our future was uncertain, but it was bright. We were moving forward, one step at a time, into a new chapter of our lives.
In an era long past, there existed a rigid belief that a woman's worth hinged solely on her ability to bear children within the initial years of marriage. This archaic notion, however, stands in stark contrast to the progressive values of modern society. Regrettably, remnants of this outdated mindset still linger, perpetuating the harmful stereotype that a woman's purpose rests solely in her ability to conceive and give birth. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ashley, a 25-year-old homemaker. Despite my tender age, I find myself unable to conceive. My journey has been marred by physical frailty since childhood, rendering me frequently absent from school due to illness. The consequence of my fragile constitution left me withdrawn, with pallid skin and a slight frame, a stark contrast to the vibrant health of my elder sister, Emily, who garnered all the affection and attention from our parents. Emily, a year my senior, embodied the epitome of vitality with her cherubic cheeks and enchanting gaze. Meanwhile, I languished in the shadow of my siblings' robustness, deemed by my parents as a defective entity, a burden they wished would soon be lifted. Their affections lavished solely upon Emily, I was relegated to the sidelines, a mere afterthought in their eyes. In times past, there persisted a belief: a woman who could conceive after 3 years of marriage was deemed worthless. Such notions now appear woefully outdated in the context of modern society. It's a regressive mindset, one that sadly endures, where some still harbor the assumption that all women should and will bear children, stigmatizing those unable to do so as worthless. My name is Ashley. I'm a 25-year-old housewife, incapable of conceiving. My journey has been fraught with frailty since childhood, rendering me frequently sickly and weak. With little physical vigor, school often eluded me, leaving me isolated and shy with pallid skin and a slender frame. My parents regarded me as defective and despised my existence, showering affection solely upon my older sister Emily, who, unlike me, enjoyed robust health with rosy cheeks and luminous eyes. I too possessed large eyes, though my frailty cast them in a sickly light. Amidst our affluent upbringing, my parents doted solely on Emily, indulging her every whim while I languished in neglect. Left behind on family excursions due to my frail health, I remained an outsider, deprived of familial mementos. It was a torment, being deemed defective by those who should have offered solace. With no friends to confide in, loneliness became my constant companion. Upon reaching adulthood, my parents swiftly arranged my marriage to Kevin, who received a sizable sum in exchange for caring for a weak, infertile spouse like me. Kevin, ensnared in financial woes, wed me for financial gain. As a full-time housewife, I'd often pondered his true intentions, for he returned home late and inebriated, showing no semblance of affection. You should count yourself fortunate, they'd remind me, echoing my parents' sentiments of worthlessness due to infertility. Yet, despite years of marriage, the prospect of pregnancy remained elusive, a poignant reminder of my perceived inadequacy. Despite the cold treatment from my husband Kevin, there was a beacon of warmth in my married life. It came in the form of my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and his wife, who showed me kindness. My father-in-law, having known me since my marriage at the tender age of 20, embraced me as his own daughter. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law Mike and his wife Maria extended genuine concern towards me, with Maria's care shining particularly bright. Ashley, you need not conform to others' expectations like a lifeless doll, Mike, employed in a reputable firm, would often remind me. Maria, juggling her own career and managing her interior design office, exuded boundless warmth and cheer. Her caring nature prompted her frequent visits to check up on me, recognizing my solitude and loneliness. What began as simple tea sessions and chats evolved into meaningful lessons and guidance. Consider pursuing the qualification, even if it's a hobby, Maria encouraged me. Initially disheartened by my lack of formal education, I expressed my doubts. Sensing my despondency, Maria offered sage advice. Mastering basic household tasks is a foundation for tackling anything. Learning breeds confidence. Inspired by Maria's words, I embarked on studying for a color certification, a step towards newfound skills and self-assurance. Little did I know, my father-in-law had sought counsel from Mike and Maria regarding my well-being, a testament to their unwavering support. Ashley has a tendency to underestimate herself. It's crucial to find a way to boost her confidence, remarked my father-in-law thoughtfully. Introducing her to new areas of study could be a catalyst, Maria chimed in, her voice brimming with optimism. Mike and my father-in-law readily embraced her suggestion. Though my parents had often deemed me weak and slow-witted, I discovered a newfound joy in learning. With each certification exam I conquered during my spare moments, a glimmer of confidence illuminated my spirit. Passing those tests brought me immense joy, shattering the belief that I was incapable of achieving anything. Eager to delve deeper into my studies and reach greater heights, I shared my aspirations with Kevin, only to be met with derision. Must be nice to indulge in useless studying. Kevin's dismissive words no longer pierced me with their usual sting. Instead, they ignited a flame of anger within me, unleashing years of suppressed emotions. Is that the sentiment one expresses when living off his wife's family's wealth? I retorted, a departure from my usual submissive demeanor. Caught off guard by my uncharacteristic sarcasm, Kevin recoiled, his facade of dominance crumbling in the face of truth. Shut up. I'm nothing like you, a defective product. I'll make something of myself. Kevin's words echoed through the room, laden with anger and defiance. Unfazed by his outburst, I retorted, "They say big mouths like yours are all talk." Enraged by my defiance, Kevin lashed out, kicking the wall before storming out, likely seeking solace in drink and revelry. Reflecting on my predicament, I couldn't help but rule my parents' choice of partner for me. Yet their disregard for their frail daughter hinted at their flawed judgment. Marrying Kevin proved to be a grave error, aligning me with a man who squandered my family's wealth for his own pleasure. Ironically, it was Kevin's own family that offered me newfound perspective. Following the confrontation, Kevin vanished for days, presumably with my sister Emily. Despite knowing of their affair, I remained passive, for my parents' unwavering favoritism towards Emily allowed the illicit relationship to persist. Emily, having relinquished custody of her child after divorce, still basked in my parents' affection, a fact that facilitated her clandestine liaison with Kevin. The intentions of my parents, Emily and Kevin, were glaringly evident to me. It seemed they were orchestrating a scenario where Kevin would eventually divorce me. If Emily were to conceive, my parents would undoubtedly prioritize her desires over my well-being. Anticipating the inevitable day when my sister would abscond with my husband, I steeled myself, confident in my ability to withstand the impending storm. Sometime later, we convened at my father-in-law's residence. While I maintained regular visits, Kevin's absence from his family home had become conspicuous. Consumed by pride, Kevin incessantly measured himself against his brother Mike, a graduate of a prestigious university now employed by a major corporation. Though neither my father-in-law nor Mike ever addressed this disparity, Kevin harbored a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. Initially, Kevin had taken pride in marrying into wealth, viewing me as a symbol of his ascent. However, my father-in-law remained indifferent to his son's status, showering affection upon me while adopting a stern demeanor towards Kevin. Though he lavished praise upon Maria, Mike's wife, for her accomplishments, beneath the veneer of admiration lay a simmering jealousy towards his brother's life. Maria is truly remarkable, successful in her career, a devoted mother, and an accomplished woman. Ashley, on the other hand, lacks intelligence and competence, Kevin would remark, thinly veiling his flattery towards Maria with insults directed at me. Though Maria appeared visibly perturbed by his words, she gracefully brushed off Kevin's disparaging remarks. "Ashley is my sister as well, and I find it unacceptable when she's insulted," Maria asserted firmly, her tone brooking no argument. Mike, nodding in solidarity, echoed her sentiment. "Kevin, before comparing Maria and Ashley, consider your own actions," Mike cautioned, his words laced with concern. With a dismissive click of his tongue, Kevin's immaturity became glaringly apparent, leaving me feeling profoundly embarrassed. My father-in-law, his gaze clouded with bitterness, had always treated his sons equally. Yet their disparate paths had left him disheartened. Though he had confided his frustrations to me in the past, today he found his voice, reproaching Kevin sternly. "Have you no shame, Kevin, relying on Ashley's family wealth while shirking your responsibilities? Ashley is a devoted wife. If you're to be a husband, you must learn to support yourself. It's a simple concept," he admonished, his words tinged with disappointment. Flushed with anger, Kevin retorted defensively, "Dad, Ashley was useless, a burden. I'm merely returning the favor." Mike, speaking on behalf of his father, delivered a cutting blow. "Kevin, as your brother, I'm compelled to tell you, your mindset is toxic." Normally quick to anger, Kevin's response was met with a rare silence, broken only by his cursing and abrupt departure. As I moved to intervene, my father-in-law held me back with a heavy sigh. "I'm sorry, Ashley. I had hoped marriage would instill in him a sense of responsibility, but it seems that's not the case." With weary shoulders, Mike and Maria slumped beside my father-in-law, mirroring his heavy sigh. Quietly, I lowered my head, preparing to depart, but Maria intercepted me with a reassuring touch. "Don't worry, Ashley. Everything is arranged," she assured me with a gentle smile. Nodding in gratitude, I left my father-in-law's abode, returning to the tumultuous atmosphere of my home, where Kevin's rage had left a trail of destruction. The room bore the scars of Kevin's tantrum, strewn with wreckage as he drunkenly bellowed his intentions. "I'm divorcing you, the barren one. Emily will be my new wife," he proclaimed triumphantly, reveling in the supposed consent my parents had given. So, Kevin had indeed chosen Emily. My parents had always catered to her whims, even at the cost of my marriage. They didn't object. Kevin had been well aware of my infertility when he married me, exploiting me for his convenience. Yet it was Emily who desired Kevin, and my parents tacitly condoned their affair. Perhaps now craving grandchildren, they saw Emily's potential pregnancy as an opportunity to unite her with Kevin. Such manipulative machinations were within my parents' capability. When Emily divorced previously, she relinquished custody of her child, deeming them unattractive due to their lack of attachment to her. Emily was self-absorbed, prioritizing her own desires above all else, even her own child. My heart ached for the potential plight of the child born to Emily and Kevin, envisaging a future overshadowed by their self-centeredness. Would such selfish parents be capable of fostering genuine happiness in their offspring? I pondered. Kevin, oblivious to my concerns, derided me, urging me to depart as we finalized our divorce proceedings. "I'll pay you alimony, you worthless," he sneered, oblivious to the fact that it would be my parents providing financial support. With a heavy heart, I signed the divorce papers, gathered my essentials, and bid farewell to the house. Choosing to forego seeking solace at my parents' abode, I sought refuge in the comforting embrace of Mike and Maria. I had confided in them about my suspicions regarding Kevin and Emily's affair, a notion Mike reluctantly entertained. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Maria had already begun preparations for my arrival. As I stepped into their home, their shy son peeked out briefly before retreating into hiding. He bore a striking resemblance to Maria and exuded an endearing shyness. Gathering around the table, we deliberated on our plans for the future. Maria, ever the pragmatic thinker, had secured a living arrangement for me, ensuring my safety and well-being amidst the tumult of divorce. With gratitude swelling in my heart, I found solace in the unwavering support of Mike and Maria, determined to navigate the uncertain road ahead with their guidance. I settled into the company housing provided by Maria's interior design firm, preparing to embark on a new chapter as an employee there. Despite my apprehension about entering the workforce for the first time, Maria's reassuring smile offered a beacon of encouragement. "Don't worry, Ashley, you've got this," she reassured me with unwavering confidence. Under Maria's nurturing guidance and Mike's administrative support, I severed all ties with my family following the divorce. Mike took charge of informing my former father-in-law of our decision, emphasizing our collective disassociation from Kevin. Though saddened by the turn of events, my former father-in-law understood and extended an open invitation for me to continue visiting, now that Kevin was no longer a part of our lives. Thus, I formally liberated myself from the shackles of marriage and embraced newfound independence. With alimony from Kevin and severance funds from my parents, I embarked on my journey towards self-sufficiency. Refusing to rely on my parents' financial support any longer, I returned the severance money untouched, determined to forge my path independently. Embracing my role at Maria's firm, I began by learning the ropes under the tutelage of one of her subordinates, Stephen. A jovial companion around my age, Stephen imparted his knowledge between his hectic schedule, fostering a sense of camaraderie as we navigated the intricacies of the job together. One morning, I arrived at the office early and took the initiative to tidy up, much to Stephen's surprise. "Wow, the office looks immaculate," he exclaimed, pitching in to assist with the cleaning. When I offered an apologetic explanation, he tilted his head in confusion. "Why apologize when you've done nothing wrong? We're equals here. We work together," he remarked, his words a revelation. It was the first time someone had acknowledged me as an equal. With my history of feeling inferior due to my frailty and inability to conceive, I had always carried a sense of burden. Yet Stephen, with his competence, should have held a higher position, yet he dismissed my concerns with a laugh, emphasizing our equality through collaboration. It was a humbling realization, encountering such kindness and generosity. As we conversed, Maria arrived a bit earlier than usual, casting an observant eye over Stephen and me with a knowing smile. "Ah, Stephen, have you finally gotten to know Ashley better?" she teased, causing Stephen to blush furiously. Perplexed by Maria's comment, I remained clueless until she leaned in to whisper, "Stephen has been wanting to speak with you alone. He's been waiting for the opportunity." Stephen, flustered by Maria's revelation, muttered, "Director, we agreed you wouldn't mention that," before hastily excusing himself to the break room. With a playful slap on my shoulder, Maria left me standing there, utterly bewildered. It wasn't until the realization dawned upon me, coloring my cheeks with embarrassment, that Maria quipped, "Stephen is quite the gentleman." It seems he's taken a liking to you since the day you stepped into the office. I may be divorced, and I certainly have my flaws, Maria admitted, casting a meaningful glance at Stephen, who stood beside her, presenting her with a freshly brewed cafe latte. She then tenderly patted my bowed head before disclosing a surprising revelation. You see, the son Maria and Mike have been raising isn't actually their biological child, she confessed, her words carrying a weight of sincerity. He's a relative's child, taken in after his parents tragically perished in an accident. Essentially, he's been adopted into our family. Maria and Mike had made the conscious decision to prioritize raising a child who had lost everything. As Maria spoke, her gaze shifting between Stephen and me, her voice resonated with warmth and compassion. When our son first called us Dad and Mom, I couldn't help but shed tears, she revealed, her emotions palpable. Parenting isn't solely defined by biological ties. Even with blood relations, there are instances where parents and children remain distant. But our son chose us as his parents, not by obligation but by genuine affection. To me, that's far more precious than any bond forged solely through blood. With a gentle sip of the cafe latte prepared by Stephen, I found solace in its warm and soothing aroma, the tension in my heart easing with each comforting sip. Fast forward about 3 years from that moment, and my life had taken a significant turn. I found love again and tied the knot with Stephen just a year after we embarked on our journey together. Yet, when I once again found myself apologizing for my inability to conceive, Stephen's reaction caught me off guard. Ashley, there's no need for apologies, he chided gently, his tone laced with warmth. Would you expect me to kneel down and apologize for not being able to have children? His words resonated deeply within me, dispelling the weight of guilt that I had carried for so long. With a shake of my head, I found solace in his laughter, his cheerful demeanor a balm to my soul. His simple reassurance became a beacon of hope, illuminating the path forward that I had never dared to imagine. Despite remarrying, I remained connected with Maria, Mike, and my former father-in-law. Their unwavering support and genuine happiness for my newfound happiness warmed my heart. Today, we found ourselves on a short trip, exploring a tourist spot that Maria had once described as delightful during her own family visits. As I sat in a chair, patiently awaiting Stephen's return from the restroom, I savored a moment of tranquility at a nearby tea shop, grateful for the love and companionship that now graced my life. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierced through the tranquil ambience. Ashley, it called out, shattering the peaceful moment. Turning around, I found myself face to face with Kevin, my ex-husband, accompanied by my sister Emily. Emily, adorned in heavy makeup, still possessed her trademark beauty, though it seemed somewhat exaggerated. You're still moping around, traveling alone after the divorce, she remarked, unaware of my recent remarriage. Ignoring their presence, I eagerly awaited my husband's return from the restroom. Upon his arrival, my husband, perplexed by the unexpected company, apologized for the crowded restroom. His puzzled expression spoke volumes, silently questioning the identity of our uninvited guests. Desperate to depart from the uncomfortable encounter, I urged my husband to leave, hoping to avoid further confrontation. Yet Emily's derisive tone cut through the air as she mocked me for finding another partner despite my perceived shortcomings. Attempting to maintain composure, my husband intervened, asserting his role as my spouse. I am Ashley's husband, he declared firmly, his gaze unwavering. And her name is now Ashley Stevens. Furthermore, we are expecting a child. With a gentle pat on my belly, he unveiled our joyous news, leaving Kevin visibly pale. Emily, however, responded with a sneer, casting doubt on the well-being of our unborn child. In a steely tone, my husband responded, Ashley is currently expecting her second child. Our eldest daughter is a healthy 2-year-old currently in the care of my parents. Kevin's complexion drained at the revelation, mirroring my own astonishment. The news of my second pregnancy had initially caught me off guard. I vividly recall my disbelief when the doctor at the maternity clinic confirmed my ability to conceive, contrary to the beliefs instilled in me by my parents. My parents had always led me to believe that I was unable to bear children, a notion I had unquestioningly accepted. Yet it turned out that my body was perfectly capable of conception. When I shared the news with my husband, he was elated. However, it left me wondering why I had never conceived during my marriage to Kevin. Seeking answers, I confided in Maria, who, after a moment of contemplation, voiced a troubling hypothesis. According to Maria, there was a possibility that my parents had deceived me all along. It was likely that they had discouraged me from having children, fearing the potential complications that could arise from my fragile health. In fact, they might have gone as far as instructing Kevin to use contraception to prevent pregnancy. It was a shocking revelation, one that shed light on the manipulative tactics employed by my own family. Having remarried, Stephen and I welcomed a healthy baby girl into our family, followed by a son during my second pregnancy, both of whom thrived. Yet, despite the joy of motherhood, I couldn't shake off the lingering burden of guilt stemming from my parents' deceitful machinations. As Stephen and I prepared to depart, Emily's cruel words pierced through the air, her smirk laden with malice. Had terminated Kevin's pregnancy. It was a botched attempt, she jeered callously, admitting to aborting the fetus due to potential disabilities. Kevin, desperate and pleading, implored me to relinquish one of my children, fearing he would be disowned otherwise. Emily's laughter echoed with malicious glee. Fueled by rage, I was on the verge of erupting, but Stephen's firm grip on my arm halted me. With a contemptuous glare at Kevin and Emily, Stephen's voice dripped with disdain. "Save your vile remarks for your own demise," he spat out, his disgust palpable. Without another word, he guided me away, refusing to dignify their cruelty with a response. I followed suit, casting a final disdainful glance over my shoulder, feeling as though I had glimpsed the depths of depravity reserved for their unborn child. In due time, I welcomed a baby boy into the world, adding to the challenges of caring for my 2-year-old daughter and newborn son. Despite the demands of motherhood, my husband stood by my side, offering his unwavering support. Meanwhile, my ex-husband Kevin found himself deserted by Emily, left to fend for himself as his financial woes mounted. Rejected by my former father-in-law and brother-in-law when he sought assistance, Kevin's predicament left them dumbfounded. As for my selfish parents and sister Emily, their actions eventually led to their downfall. Emily's reckless pursuits, including affairs with married men, resulted in numerous lawsuits and hefty alimony payments. Gradually, her fortune dwindled, and her reputation crumbled. Unable to intervene, my parents watched helplessly as Emily's actions drained their assets. To compound matters, Emily's ill-advised dealings with a dubious company left her ensnared in a web of debt, pursued by relentless creditors. My parents and Emily have fallen on hard times, but their plight no longer weighs on me. They are mere blood ties, estranged from my true family, my loving husband and our 2 precious children. Their well-being is my sole concern now. As I tended to our son's needs, my husband delighted in play with our daughter, their laughter filling our home. Observing their joyous interaction, a wave of gratitude washed over me. Caught up in the moment, I found myself smiling uncontrollably. My husband, noticing my expression, inquired, "What's on your mind, Ashley?" "I'm just overwhelmed with happiness to be with you, Stephen," I confessed. With a playful grin, he teased, "Well, you're Mrs. Stephen too." His light-hearted remark elicited laughter from all of us, filling our hearts with warmth and contentment. My name is Jennifer, a 32-year-old professional. My husband, Donnie, is 30 and also employed. We got married 2 years ago. Donnie might seem a bit unreliable at times, but he's a kind-hearted person and quite capable of managing the household chores. I'm a career-driven woman, finding fulfillment in my work and the achievements it brings. I work in the New York metropolitan area, a place where hard work is recognized and rewarded. However, the possibility of relocations looms and there is no established policy for maternity or parental leave. Many female employees tend to resign upon marriage or starting a family. Initially, I also preferred my career over domestic life and had no plans of getting married. When Donnie proposed, expressing his desire to marry me, I initially turned him down. "I love my job," I said. "I'm a section chief now, but I want to climb higher. I can't picture settling down or having kids." However, Donnie understood my ambitions and promised we would share the housework and not have children. His understanding nature eventually won me over, and I agreed to marry him. Although we both work and sometimes don't divide the chores exactly as planned, we support each other and manage pretty well. We face some annoying comments from my in-laws like, "You should prioritize your home over your work," or "Aren't you going to have kids?" But it's not too troublesome since Donnie always stands up for me. Living with Donnie has been a pleasant experience, and I've come to appreciate the beauty of married life. Then one day, my supervisor, the department manager, called me in to discuss a potential transfer to a branch office. He said, "What do you think? The position is at a regional branch, but you'll be back at headquarters after 2 years. You'll be a section chief at the new location, and if you keep up the good work, a promotion is guaranteed upon your return. You could even become the first female department head. Not a bad offer, right?" Accepting or rejecting this transfer would significantly impact my career. In our company, everyone who has advanced to department manager or higher has undergone a transfer. Refusing could mean staying at the section chief level with the risk of demotion or being moved to an irrelevant position. Before marriage, I would have jumped at this opportunity without hesitation. But now, as a married woman, I felt a bit restrained. I told my department manager, "Thank you for considering me. Personally, I would like to view this positively. However, since it involves a transfer, I need to discuss it with my husband. Could I get back to you after that?" He replied, "Oh, right, you're married. You can choose between going alone or moving with your family. Discuss it thoroughly. I'll be expecting a positive answer." When I got home, I talked to Donnie about it. "I've been offered a transfer," I explained. "I might have to go to the countryside, but if I work hard for 2 years, I can return here. If I continue to perform well, I can get promoted. I want to accept this offer if you're okay with it, Donnie. We can either move together, or I can go alone. What do you think?" Donnie seemed surprised at first, but after some thought, he said, "Your dream can come true if you accept this transfer, right, Jennifer? I can't move with you because of my job here, but don't worry about me. Go for it." With Donnie's encouragement, I informed the company that I would be moving alone for the transfer and began negotiating the terms and conditions. The company agreed to cover my relocation expenses. Additionally, they offered to treat my commute days home from the remote location as on-duty time and provided a decent benefits package. These factors convinced me to accept the transfer to the branch office. After receiving the official transfer order, I made the decision to relocate to the countryside. I found out I could rent a company apartment at a reasonable price, so that's where I opted to live. On the day of the move, the movers had already transported my belongings, and my husband came to see me off at the station. "Thanks for seeing me off. I'll keep in touch regularly and try to come home as often as I can." "Yeah, I'll be waiting. Just because you're working remotely, don't overdo it." "Same goes for you. It's time to go. Take care." "Okay, I'm heading out." And so, my journey as a remote employee began. I had initially planned to return home during extended holidays and quieter periods, but trouble soon arose at the branch office shortly after my transfer. I can't take orders from a woman. I don't trust someone who just appeared out of nowhere. I encountered resistance from the local employees who refused to acknowledge my authority. Baseless rumors circulated about me, my directives were ignored, and even my phone calls went unanswered. In the midst of this, a serious mistake occurred in a project that one of my subordinates had been overseeing, deliberately excluding me from the process. The subordinate responsible was visibly shaken. Naturally, as their supervisor, I took full responsibility. I found myself consumed with rectifying the issue, offering apologies, not only to regain lost ground, but also to mend relations with my team. Witnessing my challenges, my supervisor offered some guidance. "I've been through a transfer myself, so I understand what you're going through. It might feel unjust, but you can't simply impose your authority here. Effective communication, empathy, and building relationships laterally are key." Taking my supervisor's words to heart, I focused on forging horizontal connections by spending more time with everyone at the branch. Despite not initially being part of the neighborhood association, I discovered that the company's rental housing fell under its umbrella, prompting me to join. Before I realized it, I found myself struggling to carve out personal time and often unable to return to my home, where my husband patiently awaited my return. I kept in touch with my husband, but after a few months of remote work, it became increasingly difficult to reach him at night via phone or text. "I'm stuck at that office late every day. It's chaos," he'd explain. Exhausted, I often found myself drifting off to sleep. His explanations seemed plausible, and amidst my own busy schedule, I didn't think much of it, focusing my energy on my work. Even during a rare slow period, when I decided to return to our home in New York on short notice, I couldn't reach him. So, I abruptly left my remote location and headed home. Upon opening the door, a strange feeling enveloped me. A woman I didn't recognize dashed to greet me, saying, "Justin, welcome back. If only I'd known you were coming home early, I would have prepared." The woman and I stood frozen, staring at each other in disbelief. Eventually, she broke the silence. "May I ask who you are? And who might you be?" "This is my home," I replied firmly. "There must be some misunderstanding. I live in this house," she insisted. After a futile exchange of arguments, we decided to step outside to verify the house number. To my astonishment, the nameplate displayed the custom one I had ordered. The key fits, and the nameplate is correct. "This is my house. I'm going in," I declared. "Wait, what are you doing?" "Stop," she protested. Ignoring her protests, I pushed past and entered the house. Once inside, I immediately noticed the drastic changes. New curtains, different furniture, a complete overhaul of the interiors. In the living room, a framed photo captured my husband and the woman at a theme park. The kitchen held mugs unfamiliar to me, while the bathroom revealed strange toothbrushes and skincare products. Even the shower boasted women's shampoo and conditioner. As I inspected further, the bed linen sported a design I didn't recognize, and the wardrobe held only the woman's clothes, with none of mine in sight. My husband's belongings were tucked away in a room at the back of the house, as if the woman had seamlessly moved in and taken over while I stood there in shock. I swung the front door open. "I'm back. Lola, did you invite a friend over?" I asked. "Justin, thank goodness you're here. This woman just walked in like she owns the place," Lola exclaimed. The man the woman referred to as Justin was undoubtedly my husband. Catching sight of me, he looked taken aback. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Donnie, since when did you go by Justin? Can you explain what's happening?" I confronted him. "What are you talking about? This is Justin, isn't it, Justin?" he replied hesitantly. "Well, you see, caught between us, my husband appeared flustered. "Lola, this man's real name is Donnie. Isn't that what's on your driver's license?" "And I'm Donnie's wife, Jennifer," I interjected. "That's not true. He told me he was divorced," Lola retorted. "Donnie, you need to explain everything clearly," I demanded. "Jennifer, you were hardly ever home, and I felt lonely. So I thought I'd give a dating app a try and met Lola," Donnie confessed. "I see. So Justin is your alias on the dating app?" I inquired. "No, it's not like that. I was worried about using my real name, so I used a fake one. But I kept my last name," Donnie explained. "And why lie about being divorced?" In Lola's dating app profile, she mentioned, "I've only ever attended all-girls schools and have never dated a man before. Looking for someone who's willing to be serious about a relationship with the goal of marriage." It really struck a chord with me, so I fibbed about being divorced to win Lola over, and we ended up moving in together. "Why on earth would you do that?" I exclaimed in disbelief. At that moment, my husband launched into a defense of his actions. "It's because you're always away for work. It's only natural for a man to crave companionship. We've been leading separate lives due to your demanding job and the overtime and weekend shifts. I just wanted a cozy home where my wife would be waiting for me with dinner ready," he explained defiantly. I was stunned by his confession, realizing that my perception of his supportiveness towards my career might have been misguided. "But that doesn't excuse what you did. Your actions were despicable. If you wanted to be with someone else, you should have had the decency to end our marriage first. Why didn't you do the right thing?" I demanded. "I cared for both of you. I never intended to leave either of you," my husband defended himself. "After everything you've done, it was inevitable that I would find out when I returned. It's beyond belief that you thought you could deceive me," I shot back. "Well, if you had kept your promise and returned home, none of this would have happened. Your absence pushed me to seek companionship elsewhere," he argued. "What nonsense. I've explained to you how demanding my work has been," I retorted. Our argument escalated into a heated exchange, with the woman my husband had been involved with standing there, visibly shaken. She realized she had been deceived by a married man and dragged into his deceitful game. "So it was all a lie? You've made a fool of me. I'm leaving right now," she declared, storming out. "Lola, please, just hear me out," my husband pleaded as he attempted to halt the other woman, who was hastily packing her belongings. "Don't you dare touch me with those deceitful hands of yours. I can't trust a single word that comes out of your mouth," she spat back, her voice laced with anger and betrayal. With a final curse directed at my husband, the other woman stormed out, heading for her parents' home. Fuming with anger and a desire for retribution, I resolved to punish my husband for his infidelity. Gathering evidence meticulously, I amassed a collection of proof to take back with me. Upon returning to my work assignment, I wasted no time in hiring a detective to uncover details about my husband's mistress. The investigation unearthed that she was the daughter of an executive at a company closely associated with my husband's business partner. Armed with this information, I instructed my lawyer to dispatch evidence of the affair to both my husband's residence and the other woman's parents. Upon receiving the incriminating documents, my husband vehemently protested, expressing his reluctance for a divorce. Unmoved by his pleas, I braced myself for a protracted legal battle, even considering the possibility of taking the matter to court. Unexpectedly, the other woman's family reached out to my lawyer, prompting us to arrange a meeting at their office. To my surprise, the other woman and her parents showed up, offering their sincerest apologies. "We are deeply sorry. Our daughter's actions have caused you immense trouble, and we take full responsibility for that. She has always been sheltered and quite naive about the world. Despite our efforts to arrange a marriage for her with someone we deemed suitable, she longed for a more liberated love. She met your husband without our knowledge and unfortunately got carried away without truly understanding who he was. She mentioned meeting a divorced man on a dating app and expressed a desire to move in with him. Despite our pleas for her to cease contact with him, she refused to listen. She became so entangled in her fantasies that she ran away from home to be with him. Upon realizing she was the other woman, she was devastated and has since sought therapy. We are prepared to offer you a settlement of $50,000, and we kindly request that you keep this matter confidential." With solemn expressions, the other woman and her parents extended their hands, shaking mine firmly. "I appreciate your apology. However, I'll accept it under one condition. I'm in the process of pursuing a divorce, but my husband is unwilling to agree. If you're willing to cooperate by providing testimony if this escalates to a trial, then I'll agree to the settlement," I stated firmly. "We agree to cooperate, but we're concerned about our daughter's future. We prefer to avoid any permanent legal repercussions," they responded. "Fortunately or unfortunately, my husband's workplace is a client of yours," I revealed. In an unexpected turn of events, the woman my husband had been unfaithful with and I formed an unlikely alliance. Together, we plotted to teach him a lesson. His workplace would soon face a crisis due to his altercation with an executive at one of their client companies. Naturally, all blame would fall squarely on my husband. Meanwhile, back at home, his parents remained oblivious to the turmoil, attempting to reach out to him as they always did. "Jennifer isn't answering our calls, and she won't return them either. Is she so wrapped up in work that she's forgotten about us? When is she planning to come back? We miss seeing our grandchild," his mother lamented. "Mom, you don't understand. I cheated on Jennifer while she was away on assignment, and now it seems like we're headed for a divorce," my husband confessed. His mother's response was surprising. "That woman who neglects Donnie to focus on her job is to blame. Perhaps it's best if you break up with Jennifer and reconcile with the woman you had the affair with," she suggested. It became apparent that my in-laws had chosen to align themselves with the other woman's family, possibly because they perceived them as wealthier than ours. They launched a series of attacks against me, bombarding me with calls that I eventually had to block. Undeterred, they began calling me at work. When I refused to engage with them, they took matters a step further by showing up at my workplace, causing a commotion and creating a scene. "Release our son. It's your fault for being such a career-focused woman that our son strayed. He'd be happier with his lover, so stop interfering," his parents demanded. In response, I exclaimed, "What are you talking about? I'm the one seeking a divorce from Donnie. He's the one resisting, and besides, the woman he cheated with has no interest in reconciling with him. He deceived the daughter of a business executive into a relationship, and they're rightfully upset. This is going to cause a lot of trouble." Upon realizing that their son had injured a significant client, my in-laws swiftly changed their tune and attempted to reconcile with me. "Oh dear, we had no idea it had escalated to this point. We must have misunderstood. We apologize. Our son has acted foolishly, but he's regretful. You'll forgive him, won't you, Jennifer?" they pleaded. "I must decline. You've just criticized me, and now you expect me to forgive you. Please leave," I asserted firmly. Refusing to budge, they persisted, prompting me to have them escorted out by security. Their disruptive behavior led my company to take legal action against them for obstructing business. Following these events, I finally received the compensation owed to me by my husband and proceeded with the divorce. Additionally, the other woman's family sought compensation for the breach of her chastity and the costs of her psychiatric treatment, with the repercussions of his actions tarnishing his reputation at work and the financial strain of hefty compensations. My husband found himself overwhelmed with debt. Unable to afford to resign, he found himself trapped in a difficult situation. After 2 years of being away on assignment, things had finally calmed down. As I prepared to return to the main office, I reflected on my journey. Successfully completing my assignment had been a significant achievement, leading to my promotion to department manager. It dawned on me that had I not taken on this assignment, I might still be stuck in a loveless marriage. Yet deep down, I knew that a man like him would have strayed sooner or later, and conflict with his parents would have been inevitable. Through this experience, I've come to understand that I'm better suited for the demands of work rather than the complexities of family life. Now, I find myself immensely fulfilled and content. Shut your trap, you old hack. Women like you should learn to keep your mouth shut. My sister-in-law spat venomously, her words piercing the air like barbed arrows. I stood frozen, aghast at the unprecedented display of aggression. Never before had I witnessed such crude language and physical intimidation from a woman, let alone from someone within my own family circle. She gripped my collar with a force that mirrored a man's, sending shivers down my spine. I had harbored hopes that marriage would mellow her fiery temperament, but alas, it seemed her volatile nature persisted. My name is Helen, a 35-year-old homemaker. Since tying the knot 5 years ago, my husband Chris and I had been residing with my in-laws. Despite the challenges, they were kind souls, offering support with household chores while I juggled a job. Chris, my partner in life and age, alongside my father-in-law, were pillars of strength in our family unit, staying united through thick and thin. We decided to follow the path our parents had trodden, opting to live under the same roof as my in-laws, just as they had done. The idea was floated by our elders, suggesting it as a viable arrangement. While I understood that many women might balk at the idea of cohabiting with their in-laws, I found solace in the familiarity of a bustling household. Having grown up in a family of 12, the notion of solitary living seemed alien and disconcerting to me. Thus, when the proposal was put forth, I embraced it with genuine contentment. My in-laws were amiable folks, and I cherished the idea of perpetuating our harmonious coexistence. However, our domestic tranquility was abruptly shattered by a somber incident. My mother-in-law suffered a grievous injury outdoors, necessitating hospitalization. A heart attack had seized her as she descended a flight of stairs, causing her to tumble. Her physical agony was compounded by the frailty wrought by her heart condition. In light of these circumstances, I made the decision to resign from my job, assuming the role of a full-time homemaker. Balancing visits to the hospital with household duties, I found solace in the unwavering support of my father-in-law and Chris. Amidst the chaos, the return of my sister-in-law Sarah added another layer of complexity to our family dynamic. Sarah had long been the proverbial black sheep, casting shadows over our family harmony. At 33 years old, Sarah now divides her time between part-time employment at a clothing store and purported night shifts elsewhere. Prior to our marriage, my father-in-law had extended an offer to her. If life becomes too burdensome, you're welcome to live with us. Yet she staunchly declined, citing a desire for independence. I value my freedom too much to live under someone else's roof, she retorted, much to the chagrin of my in-laws. Sarah's penchant for irresponsibility had long troubled them, a trait that manifested early on during her school years. She was no stranger to conflict, often clashing with teachers and causing distress for my mother-in-law. Her tumultuous journey continued into college, marked by disputes with peers and even entanglements in extramarital affairs, much to the dismay of those around her. Despite my mother-in-law's assertions of Sarah's inherent honesty and kindness, her outward appearance, characterized by natural blonde locks and undeniable attractiveness, had been a source of adversity. Stereotypical biases against blonde women cast shadows over her academic endeavors, exacerbating her challenges. That's where it all began. The seeds of disillusionment sound deep within Sarah, particularly during her tumultuous years in middle school. The atmosphere was oppressive. Despite her innocence, her teachers cast judgmental gazes upon her, fostering a sense of unwarranted scrutiny. Feeling unjustly targeted, Sarah's demeanor and academic performance gradually deteriorated. I empathize with her plight, having experienced similar rigidity during my own schooling. A close friend with natural blonde hair had faced similar challenges, prompting me to advocate vehemently against such prejudiced treatment. Over time, my defiance softened the resolve of even the most obstinate educators. Recognizing Sarah's wounded spirit, I had hoped our family home would offer respite from the world's harsh judgments. Knowing her concerns for her ailing mother, I extended an invitation for her to accompany me to the hospital. Yet my optimism was swiftly dashed upon Sarah's arrival. Without a word of greeting, she appraised me with a disdainful glance, remarking, "Ah, you must be the housekeeper. I could use some tea." Instantly my father-in-law's ire was kindled, his voice rising in indignation. Sarah's apology to me, Helen, rang hollow against her subsequent disparaging remarks. "She's Chris's wife, not the hired help. Understood? And she's perfectly lovely in her own right," my father-in-law retorted, his disappointment palpable. The venom in Sarah's words, casting aspersions on my appearance and Chris's judgment, served as a stark reminder of the deep-seated animosity festering within her. Despite the rising tide of anger within me, I made a conscious choice to respond with maturity, offering Sarah a warm smile. "Hello, Sarah. It's Helen, Chris's wife. Remember meeting at our wedding?" "Ah, yes, weddings are magical, aren't they? They have a way of making even someone like you look somewhat presentable." My father-in-law's caustic remark reverberated across the room. "Sarah, that's enough." Chris's voice, tinged with surprise, cut through the tension as he descended from the second floor. It was evident he too had endured his fair share of clashes with Sarah in the past. Before Chris and I tied the knot, he had lent her money, a debt she not only failed to repay but also arrogantly dismissed his concerns with the assertion, "Listen to your sister because you're my brother." Since then, they had been locked in a silent battle of wills, exchanging glares whenever in proximity. Undeterred by the palpable discord, Sarah persisted in her disrespectful demeanor. Without so much as a word of inquiry about her mother's well-being, she proceeded to bark orders at me. "Hey, you there, make some tea pronto. And fetch some snacks while you're at it. When I'm ready to emerge, everything better be laid out. Understood?" The icy stare of disapproval from Chris was all the response she garnered. "Helen isn't a housekeeper. If you persist with such disrespect, you'll be asked to leave." My father-in-law's voice resonated with authority. "Aren't you supposed to be concerned about Mom? She's in the hospital, isn't she? Shouldn't you trust the doctors to care for her? How can you truly grasp the extent of her suffering, the severity of her illness, or the nature of her injury if you refuse to even visit her? Mom has always worried about you, Sarah. Wouldn't it be a comfort for her to see your face, filled with life and warmth?" With a resigned sigh, Sarah retorted, "I have no interest in the woman who gave birth to me, especially not because she's blonde." My father-in-law rose abruptly, his voice thundering, "Your mother is not to blame. Do you have any idea how many times she has cleaned up after you, how much love she has poured into you? Have you ever considered my feelings? No one understands the pain of being whispered about, of being judged from a young age. I shouldn't have even bothered coming. I came here to discuss engagement, and now I'm thoroughly irritated." Sarah's demeanor froze, as if she were trapped in a perpetual state of rebellion. As Sarah made her way toward the front door, intent on departure, I hurried after her. "Congratulations on your engagement, Sarah," I called out, hoping to bridge the growing chasm between us. Ignoring my attempt at civility, she pressed on, eager to escape the confrontation. Yet I refused to let her slip away without one final plea. "Are you truly not going to visit your mother?" I implored, hoping to stir some semblance of family responsibility within her. To my surprise, Sarah halted in her tracks, her expression a mix of annoyance and disdain. "You're so irritating. I came here to discuss my engagement to a wealthy man," she retorted sharply. Understanding dawned upon me, and I offered a heartfelt apology. "I see. I'm sorry for intruding. It's wonderful that you found someone special. But remember, a person's worth isn't determined by their occupation. Whether they save lives, provide livelihoods, or nurture families, every job holds value in our society. Your father and Chris are your family. Don't belittle them for their choices." As the words left my lips, Sarah's countenance twisted with unmistakable hatred, her eyes burning with resentment as she glared at me. Before I could react, Sarah seized me by the collar, sending the shockwave of fear coursing through my body like an electric current. "Shut your trap, you old bag. Housekeepers like you should learn to keep quiet." Her words pierced through me, leaving me trembling with terror. My heart constricted painfully in my chest, rendering me speechless with fear. I struggled to vocalize my distress, but my voice failed me, drowned out by the overwhelming sense of dread. As Sarah's grip loosened, a wave of relief washed over me, allowing me to draw a shaky breath. I'm bringing my fiancé over next week. Make yourself scarce and act like a proper housekeeper. Understood? Sarah's parting words were delivered with venom, punctuated by the resounding slam of the door. I clung to the hope that her aggression would subside once she was married. It was a comforting thought, albeit tinged with uncertainty. 3 days later, a momentous event unfolded. While strolling through the neighborhood on a routine shopping trip, I stumbled upon a scene that tugged at my heartstrings. In the park, a young girl, on the cusp of starting elementary school, sat hunched over, her tear-streaked face buried in her hands. "What's the matter, sweetie?" I inquired gently, concern etched into my voice. I lost my mom," she whimpered in response, her distress palpable. Drawing upon my own childhood antics, I recalled the countless times I had inadvertently wandered away from my parents' watchful gaze, only to be swiftly reunited with the help of my vigilant siblings. "Where were you when you got separated?" I asked, my tone soft and reassuring. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. After learning her name, I gently took her hand and began calling out loudly for her mother as we traversed the park. Fortunately, our search yielded swift results, and we soon located the distressed parent. With tears of gratitude shimmering in her eyes, the woman profusely thanked me for my assistance. Upon closer inspection, I realized she was none other than an old classmate from my school days. "Emma, is that you?" I exclaimed in disbelief. "Wait, are you Helen Wilson?" she replied, her tone mirroring my astonishment. "That's my maiden name," I confirmed, a flood of memories rushing back at the sound of her voice. "I can't believe it's you, Emma. I'm sincerely sorry for the trouble," I apologized, feeling a pang of guilt for the inconvenience caused. "My daughter was chasing after a bird, and I lost sight of her. Thank you so much for helping us reunite," Emma explained, her voice tinged with relief. After sharing a hearty laugh, Emma and I couldn't shake the feeling that our chance encounter was more than mere coincidence. We exchanged contact details, pledging to catch up over coffee sometime soon. Although we had been classmates, we hadn't mingled much due to differing social circles. Yet, as adults, I sensed a missed opportunity for a potential friendship blossoming between us. The following day, I met Emma at a quaint cafe. Like me, she was a devoted housewife, her daughter currently navigating the realms of kindergarten. As we delved into conversations about our shared past and recent happenings, the hours slipped away effortlessly. However, when the topic of marriage arose, a flicker of concern crossed my features. My older brother is finally tying the knot, but I can't help feeling apprehensive. The woman he's marrying had quite a reputation as a troublemaker in our neighborhood, I confessed, a hint of worry lacing my words. Perhaps she's turned over a new leaf. If your brother sees something in her worth marrying, let's hope for the best, Emma offered reassuringly. Then, with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, she dropped a bombshell. "By the way, did you know that my brother had a crush on you, Helen?" I was taken aback, my mind reeling with surprise. "What? But we weren't even in the same grade, were we?" I exclaimed, my mind racing to reconcile Emma's revelation. "You were quite the catch, Helen. You had everyone swooning over you. Did you know that even the guy I had a crush on wasn't you?" Emma disclosed his name, triggering a faint memory of his face, though I had never realized his feelings for me. "I admit I may have felt a twinge of envy toward you back then, but it's all water under the bridge now. I'm glad I finally spilled the beans," she chuckled, a sense of relief evident in her demeanor. "Well, this certainly complicates things. I always assumed the popular Helen would end up with the mature Chris," I mused, Emma's words prompting a trip down memory lane. Chris and I were indeed classmates, but like with Emma, we never really crossed paths. He was little more than a familiar face to me. However, at our reunion a decade ago, Chris confessed, "I've had a crush on you since we were kids." That's when I realized I wanted no one else but Chris. And here we are, happily married, I concluded with a smile, grateful for the twists and turns that led us to where we are today. Soon, it was time for Emma to collect her daughter, signaling the end of our tea time together. Later, during my visit to the hospital to see my mother-in-law, the topic of Sarah naturally arose. Concern etched across her face, my mother-in-law insisted I must be discharged immediately, attempting to mobilize despite her frail condition. "Since Chris is away on a business trip today, my father-in-law and I will take charge. will ensure Sarah's partner undergoes thorough scrutiny in place of my mother-in-law, I assured her firmly, prompting a chuckle from her. Witnessing her resilience, I resolved to tackle the impending marriage introduction with renewed determination. Come Saturday, Sarah arrived with her fiancé in tow. As memories of last week's altercation with Sarah flashed through my mind, a tremor of apprehension coursed through me. Nevertheless, I summoned my resolve and greeted them with a forced smile. Sarah's fiancé, a burly figure with a commanding presence, seemed taken aback upon seeing me, though the reason eluded me. Inviting them inside, my father-in-law and I exchanged pleasantries with Sarah's fiancé in the living room. However, as I busied myself boiling water, the exchange between my father-in-law, Sarah, and her fiancé unfolded in the living room. Regrettably, I missed catching his name amidst my tasks. Upon my return with the tea, I resolved to properly greet him. However, as I set the cups on the table, Sarah's taunting smirk caught me off guard. Isn't it amusing to have this woman as our housemate? She's essentially working for us, free of charge. Quite the joke, don't you think? Sarah's words sliced through the air, steaming with disdain. To hear such disparagement during our marriage introduction was beyond comprehension. Sarah's audacity left me speechless, though my indignation simmered beneath the surface. Thankfully, my father-in-law wasted no time in reprimanding Sarah. Sarah, that's enough, he admonished sternly. Attempting to diffuse the tension, Mike interjected with a gentle tone. I apologize. Sarah, why do you refer to her as a housemaid? Despite his outward calm, Mike's disapproval was palpable as he fixed Sarah with a stern gaze. Unfazed, Sarah continued her tirade. Well, that's precisely what she is, isn't it? Just look at her, hair tied back in a simple knot, wearing cheap clothes and an outdated apron, and don't even get me started on her makeup. I bet it's all bargain bin brands. She hasn't changed a bit since the last time I saw her. It's as if she's given up on herself, content to blend into the background like some forgotten woman. My father-in-law seemed on the verge of erupting into a full-fledged outburst, while Mike appeared visibly shaken, his complexion draining of color. Don't you realize we attended the same grade school? He interjected, his voice tinged with disbelief. When Sarah was in 7th grade, she should have been in 9th. I assumed everyone in the neighborhood knew that. My father-in-law's response was tinged with regret. It appears my daughter's interests lie primarily with herself. I apologize, he conceded, leaving both Sarah and me perplexed, unable to grasp the context of their cryptic exchange. Attempting to clear the air, I turned to Mike, seeking clarification. Do you happen to know who I am? I inquired, prompting a smile from him. My apologies for the delayed introduction. You were Helen Wilson before marriage, correct? I'm Mike. My sister recently mentioned meeting you. Oh, and Emma, your sister, mentioned her brother's impending marriage. I never imagined it would be with Sarah, I exclaimed, my astonishment evident in my voice, perhaps a touch too loud. Curiosity piqued, I pressed further. What did you mean by people in the neighborhood knowing about me? Is it because I come from a large family? Mike chuckled at my inquiry. There are numerous reasons, he replied cryptically. Didn't you know, Mrs. Wilson, you were quite the local legend. Not only were you charming, but you also stood up to the toughest teachers, earning their respect. You served as student council president in both middle and high school, and rumor has it, you turned down over 300 suitors. That's just scratching the surface of your reputation. As Mike's words sunk in, a flush of embarrassment crept up my neck, surely turning my cheeks a bright shade of crimson. Oh, come on, that's an exaggeration, I protested, attempting to downplay my supposed achievements. Sure, I come from a large family, but I hardly did anything remarkable in school. And as for rejecting suitors, it's more like 5, not 300. Actually, Mike interjected, my sister mentioned how you stood up for a classmate with naturally blonde hair, challenging the prejudice against them. Your actions may not have instantly changed attitudes, but they certainly made an impact. Sarah's sharp retort cut through the air. But weren't Helen and I in different schools? I always felt like an outcast, she countered, her voice tinged with bitterness. My father-in-law intervened, gently guiding the conversation back on track. Sarah, Helen attended the same school as you, he clarified. Despite the gradual shift in attitudes towards blonde-haired students, your decision to dye your hair various colors only exacerbated tensions with the teachers. His words hung in the air, a sobering reminder of the choices that had shaped our respective paths. Sarah's expression morphed from shock to a disturbing grin. She processed the implications of her actions. So, if I hadn't dyed my hair, blonde would have been acceptable, she mused aloud, a hint of incredulity in her voice. However, her demeanor quickly darkened as she redirected her attention to me, her tone dripping with condescension. Helen, despite your vibrant school days, look at you now, a mere housewife, devoid of any sense of style, Sarah taunted, her words laced with disdain. Taking care of your mother-in-law and managing household chores must be quite the burden. You may have had your glory days, but now, there's nothing to boast about. This is what happens when you settle for an office worker like my brother. It's quite pitiful, really. Whereas, look at me, I'm the real winner, she crowed, punctuating her diatribe with a mocking laugh. Before my father-in-law could interject, I spoke up, determined to assert myself. That's merely your perspective, isn't it? I countered calmly. I find immense joy and fulfillment in my current life. I'm surrounded by a loving husband and supportive in-laws. Yes, caring for my mother-in-law while she's in the hospital can be challenging, but it's a responsibility I gladly shoulder. I am committed to ensuring her well-being, even beyond my own share. Ultimately, her health and happiness are what truly matter. Sarah's demeanor softened as she averted her gaze. Truth be told, fashion doesn't interest me, she admitted quietly. Sure, dressing up might please my husband, but beyond that, it serves little purpose. As long as we have enough to get by, I'm content. Back when I lived with my parents, we were barely scraping by. I still remember the cramped quarters shared among the 12 of us. Compared to those days, our current situation feels like paradise. Mike stood a little taller, addressing my father-in-law with sincerity. Sir, I must apologize. Originally, I came here to seek your daughter's hand in marriage. However, after hearing Sarah's sentiments, I've come to the conclusion that I am not suited to be her husband. Please forgive my abrupt change of heart. My father-in-law's response was measured yet understanding. Given the circumstances, it's evident that not many would be keen on marrying Sarah, he acknowledged. I will protest if you choose to call off the engagement. Please accept my sincerest apologies for any inconvenience caused. Mike offered another apology before rising from his seat. Sarah, who had remained tense throughout, suddenly sprung into action, seizing onto Mike's leg. Hold on a minute, you're the one who proposed, aren't you? She exclaimed, her voice trembling with desperation. How can you speak of calling off our marriage so casually? I won't tolerate living with someone who demeans my brother's wife and ridicules her in our own home. My family consists of my brother, his wife, and my sister, and I refuse to let them be hurt by your behavior. Rest assured, I'll treat your family with kindness. That's a given. In response, Mike's tone hardened. So, you tailor your behavior based on others' status? You look down on those you consider beneath you and fawn over those you perceive as superior, he accused, his disappointment palpable. I regret not seeing this side of you sooner, but now that I know, I can't continue to love you. Please release my leg if you understand, he implored gently. With those words, Sarah relinquished her grip, sinking to her knees as tears streamed down her face, overcome with emotion. My father-in-law and I left Sarah to her emotions and escorted Mike out. Following that incident, Sarah decided to move out of the house once again. Historically, whenever she encountered financial hardships, she turned to my father-in-law for support, and he'd readily assist her. However, given her recent disrespect towards my mother-in-law and her treatment of me as a mere maid, he made the difficult decision. My father-in-law made a firm decision not to extend any financial assistance to Sarah, regardless of her pleas. It appears Sarah now works in a clothing store, seemingly having outgrown her previous ventures into night work. However, her job doesn't seem to provide the means for her desired designer purchases, leaving her in a tough spot. Her blatant pursuit of money has left her with few allies willing to lend a hand. After being deserted by Mike and met with cold indifference from my father-in-law, Sarah sought solace from my mother-in-law. It's disheartening to witness how she resorted to tears and manipulation, attempting to elicit sympathy and financial aid from the ailing woman. Despite her own health concerns, my mother-in-law was moved by Sarah's display, but she ultimately made the difficult choice to sever ties with her. Since then, Sarah has vanished from our lives. Following my mother-in-law's discharge from the hospital, I became her constant companion, offering support as she adjusted to using a walking stick. Determined to make her daily life more manageable, I began seeking out ways to streamline household chores, ensuring her comfort and well-being. As my efforts to assist my mother-in-law gained recognition from my in-laws and Chris, expressions of gratitude flew freely. I should be the one thanking all of you. Your support has been invaluable to me, I humbly responded, met with warm smiles from all around. Their appreciation brought me immense joy, fueling my sense of fulfillment. Maintaining regular contact with Emma, our occasional coffee outings provided moments of respite amidst the daily routines. However, the most significant news came when I discovered I was pregnant. The excitement and joy reverberated throughout the family, with my parents and siblings joining in the celebrations. I'm truly grateful for the outpouring of love and support from everyone. While I know the journey of childbirth and raising a child will present challenges, I am eager to embrace each moment with gratitude and cherish every precious memory, I reflected, filled with anticipation for the journey ahead. Let me introduce her. This is my girlfriend, Emily, Tom said with a smile. The woman beside him greeted everyone. Nice to meet you all. Your girlfriend? I was in shock. Tom casually responded. Oh right, I haven't told you. I'm going to marry Emily, so I want a divorce. What? I was too stunned to speak. Tom continued. I realized my parents were right. Being with an older woman like you is getting tough. Emily's young, she's 23. New houses and women are always better, right? Emily nodded in agreement. And about the accident you mentioned, it's no big deal, right? You broke a bone and now you're slacking off at home. We'll take the house once we divorce. I was so shocked by his outrageous comments that I forgot to get angry. It was impossible to continue the conversation. Taking a deep breath, I presented a signed divorce document and said, Okay, here are the divorce papers. Oh, you're well prepared, Tom said, jubilant. Leaving the couple behind, I began preparing to leave the house immediately. As I was packing, Tom spoke up. You have nowhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station within the range of $100. It's old and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. The two of them laughed ignorantly. I didn't respond and slammed the front door. Let them laugh. I have places to go, places they could never imagine. My name is Catherine White. I'm turning 40 this year. I married Tom when I was 35, 3 years ago. We don't have kids and live together in the house I bought when I was single. It's secondhand but refurbished and quite clean. Why did I buy a house before getting married? It goes back to my childhood. We were poor because my father was gone. To be precise, he disappeared before I could remember him. I lived with my mother, who loved me deeply, but life was tough with just the two of us. Still, having my mother was enough. But during my high school years, she passed away due to an illness. It was devastating, but I had no time to mourn. I had to survive on my own. After graduating from high school, I started working at a small advertising agency. I worked tirelessly in sales. In my 30s, I was so dedicated to work that I never imagined I'd marry, but I wanted a place to call my own, so I saved up and bought a cheap house. I had to take out a loan, but I paid it off early. Around that time, I met Tom. He was from a client company. Tom seemed unreliable to me since he was 5 years younger, but he admired my work ethic. We started seeing each other. It was surprising but also delightful. I had never had anyone openly express their feelings for me before. We started dating and quickly got married. At first, Tom's parents disapproved of our marriage. I was older, and they knew I had no family. But Tom defended me, saying, even if she has no parents, Catherine works hard. Don't say such things. I was genuinely happy. I thought we could make it work. But that changed. The shift in Tom's behavior began less than 6 months after we moved in together. One evening, after returning from work, he sat down at the dining table. Dinner was meat and potatoes, a salad, and eggplant soup. After eating for a while, Tom stopped. What's wrong? I have been meaning to say this. The soup, it's from this morning, right? I don't like leftovers. Can you make a fresh one for dinner? But it takes time. I also work and I might not make it in time. Sorry, but that sounds like an excuse. My mother always made different soups for breakfast and dinner, and there should be at least 5 side dishes. Can you do that? I was taken aback by the sudden situation. I have felt this way for a while, but kept it to myself. While I'm not great at cooking, it's hard to do intricate dishes while working too. Your mother is a full-time housewife, right? I work and can't cook that much. That's why you shouldn't make excuses. It's expected of a housewife. You should at least do that much. I was frustrated by Tom's outdated views, but I held back my words to avoid worsening the mood, though I was discontent. I wanted to avoid arguments, so I started finishing work on time and rushing home to cook. However, Tom's actions and words became increasingly demanding. Did you use cheap meat for this? This side dish is the same as yesterday. Please space them out at least a week. With each of his complaints, the time I spent cooking became more overwhelming. Before I knew it, I was spending all day thinking about meals. Tom's nitpicking didn't stop at just food. He checked every corner of the house for dust and criticized my cleaning. If you have so many complaints, why don't you do it yourself? I finally snapped. What are you saying? Housework isn't my job. Don't shift the responsibility. Maybe you can't handle chores because you didn't have parents around. I was stunned by his words. He had never belittled me for not having parents before. Was this Tom's true nature? The man I knew before felt like an illusion. Regardless, I wished for the old Tom to return, but the situation only worsened. With Tom's endless demands, I was completely drained, and balancing work seemed impossible. On Tom's suggestion, I decided to quit my job. I had loved that job since graduating from high school, but it seemed there was no choice. Looking back, maybe I should have left him then. But I had always prioritized work over romance and didn't know what a normal family looked like. I thought perhaps meeting Tom's demands was a housewife's duty. Maybe all I had to do was bear it a bit to maintain a peaceful home. Now that I was a full-time housewife, I had much more time for housework. Tom's complaints decreased and I was genuinely relieved. I thought the problem was solved, but my friends knew Haas. It's so spacious and beautiful. The furniture was designed by famous designers and the appliances are all luxury items, they said. Oh really? I casually responded, handing Tom a glass of water. But compared to that, our second-hand house is a bit lacking. I wish we could at least replace this cheap furniture, Tom remarked. Cheap? The furniture and appliances were from my single days, but they were still in good condition. They weren't luxury items, but they weren't cheap either. Moreover, when Tom moved in, he had said, "Let's keep using these appliances and furniture." I reminded him of that, but he brushed it off. But honestly, after living with it, I feel new furniture would be better, he said without hesitation. Even if you say that, the current ones are still usable, I softly pointed out. Tom suddenly looked at me with a mocking expression. That's the frugal side of you. I wonder if you're just naturally stingy. What? Why would you say that? Anyway, I've quit my job, so we don't have that kind of money. You quit your job because you wanted to, didn't you? But you? Yeah, it's always my fault, he muttered dismissively and staggered off to the bedroom. How could he say such things? Anger started to boil within me, but then I thought maybe he's just drunk. He's just being brave because he's drunk. Don't mind. However, even when he was sober, Tom's attitude was getting worse. Our conversations became more hostile, and every time he spoke, it was to complain about me. What on earth happened to him? Then, without telling me, Tom went ahead and bought new furniture. On top of that, it seems he also got new golf equipment. He looked at the golf clubs with satisfaction, clearly pleased with himself. Tom has a regular job, but he doesn't earn much. He probably took out a loan now that I can't work. I was worried about repaying the loan. Anxiety grew in my heart. Then an unexpected event occurred. As usual, I was on my way to the supermarket to buy ingredients for dinner. While walking on the road, a loud horn blared from behind. Immediately after, I felt a huge impact, and then darkness consumed my consciousness. When I came to, I was staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. It seemed I was lying down. I felt pain everywhere and couldn't move. What happened to me? I wondered aloud. Oh, Miss White, have you awakened? A voice said. Where am I? You're in the hospital. You were brought in after a traffic accident. Traffic accident? I remembered leaving the house, but nothing after that. I moved my head slightly, taking in the impersonal bed, the attached IV drip, and the woman in a nurse's uniform. Was this really a hospital? Looking outside, it was already dark. I had left the house around 2 p.m., so a lot of time had passed. Later, a doctor came and briefly explained the situation. It seemed I was hit by a car whose driver was not paying attention while I was on my way to the supermarket. I didn't have life-threatening injuries, but I had several fractures and needed to be hospitalized for a while. I never imagined being in a traffic accident. After receiving an explanation about the hospitalization, the nurse spoke up. We've contacted your husband. From her hesitant expression, I had a bad premonition. I immediately called Tom. Hello, Tom. Yeah, Catherine. I got a call from the hospital. You had an accident. You're so clumsy. Come home quickly and make dinner. What? I'm going to be hospitalized from now on. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and when I retorted, Tom shouted back, Then what about the housework? What are you saying? Is the housework more important than me? Unbelievable. He was more concerned about the housework than his wife's condition. I felt myself becoming increasingly angry, and it soon turned into a quarrel. Arguing any further would be pointless, so I hung up the phone, still frustrated. Lately, Tom had been more harsh in his words, but I never realized he could be this cold. That day, I was filled with anger and physical pain, making it hard to sleep. But as the days went by, my strength gradually returned, and I started rehabilitation. Initially, moving was tough, but it became surprisingly enjoyable as I got used to it. Lying in bed, I often found myself lost in thought, so rehab was a welcome distraction. However, since that incident, I hadn't heard from Tom. I thought talking to him would just anger me, so I ignored him. Around that time, I occasionally passed an elderly man in the hallway. He was well dressed, so he wasn't a patient. I assumed he was visiting someone and didn't give it much thought, but he seemed to be looking my way. Are you Catherine White? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? I answered cautiously. At that time, I had no idea that this man would change my fate. Eventually, after about a month in the hospital, I was discharged. I hadn't fully recovered, but I was told all patient care would surface. I was finally going home after a month away. My home felt oddly nostalgic, but that feeling was short-lived. The moment I opened the door, I felt something was off. There were unfamiliar shoes, heels with flashy pink ribbons. Could it be? Rushing into the living room, I braced myself for what I might find. I noticed the entire house had changed. Not just the furniture, but even the electronics had been replaced with brand new, high-end models. The curtains were different too, making it feel like someone else's house. Ah, Catherine, you've been discharged. Tom emerged from the back, sitting casually. Next to him was a young woman. The woman with brown hair and a revealing outfit spoke lazily, Welcome back. Who are you? I was stunned. Tom smiled. Oh, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Emily. Nice to meet you, she added. Your girlfriend? Yeah, I guess I never mentioned it. I am planning to marry Emily, so I want a divorce. What? I was at a loss for words. I've come to realize that what my parents said was right. Without proper parents, you can't manage household chores or finances properly. I thought you being older would be reliable, but living with an aunt has become tough. Emily's young, just 23. New homes and women are always better, right? Right. Emily tilted her head in agreement. And that accident of yours wasn't a big deal, right? Breaking a bone and then slacking on housework deserves a divorce. We'll be taking the house, by the way. Such outrageous statements left me too stunned to even get angry. Don't get me wrong, we're planning to buy a new house eventually, but this place is just a temporary one until then. When they say something as unreasonable as this, I'll lose all desire to even converse with them. The old Tom is gone. I've come to think of him as a monster, not a human with whom I can communicate. I shouldn't fight on the same level with them. I took a deep breath and presented a document. Okay, here are the divorce papers. Oh, you're well prepared. I had already signed the divorce papers in advance, considering the recent strange atmosphere. I thought this choice might come up eventually, so I quickly started packing my things. I needed to prepare to leave the house. As I was busy, Tom spoke to me. You don't have anywhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station that rents for $100. It's run down and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. Ignoring their mocking laughter, I slammed the front door with force. I took a moment to look back at the house, my castle that I worked hard to buy. Today is the last day I'll see it, but I had no regrets. I had a place to go. A week later, while relaxing in my new place, the doorbell rang loudly. Checking the monitor, I saw it was Tom and Emily. Ignoring them, I heard them shouting my name. Their frenzied state made me want to laugh. After observing for a while, I spoke over the intercom. What do you want? Why are you living in such a mansion? Tom asked. The mansion he referred to was where I currently lived. A 3-story building made of reinforced concrete on a massive plot, complete with a swimming pool. You came all the way here just to say that. No, I have a proposal. Open up. I want to talk face to face. It's probably just nonsense. No, it's important, Tom insisted. Annoyed with Tom's persistence, I thought this would be the last time and opened the door. I led them to the living room. I had been in touch with Tom about the change of house ownership, but I never told him where I lived. When I asked how he found out, it seemed he coincidentally saw me in town and followed me. He was expecting to see me entering a shabby apartment, but was shocked to see me entering this mansion. Tom, along with Emily, had concocted a bold plan. Tell me, are you living in this mansion because of some shady job? What? Why? I was taken aback by Tom's absurd claim. I saw you. You were with an old man entering this house. I get it. You don't want to admit it. You're poor, so you had to find that kind of work, right? But if you have such a wealthy client, I want you to introduce him to Emily. I work in a cabaret club, so I'm good at charming older men. I'm sure I can earn more than you, Catherine. What are you both talking about? The man you saw me with is probably my father. This house is also my father's house. What? That's a lie. You don't have parents, Tom insisted loudly, just as the door to the reception room opened. Seeing the middle-aged man who emerged, I called out, Dad. My father, I explained quickly. Surprised, my father sat next to me and greeted Tom. Ah, you must be Tom. My daughter spoke of you before. Nice to meet you. I'm Catherine's father, Robert Johnson. Wait, what's going on? Tom looked back and forth between me and my father, his eyes wide with surprise. It's understandable. I only recently reunited with my father while I was in the hospital. I began, explaining the situation. Yes, the middle-aged man who spoke to me that day was my father. My father was supposed to have disappeared. I had been told so by my mother. I thought there might have been a mistake, but after speaking with this man, I realized he was my real father. To start a business, my father went to America. After a while, once his business was on track, he planned to bring us over, but he was robbed there, losing everything. He lost all his investment capital, and even his means of communication was cut off. Stranded, he fortunately met a man who offered him a job at his company. Starting with menial tasks, he gradually got promoted and eventually became the right-hand man to the company's CEO. With the help of this man, he later started his own business. The business was successful, and my father achieved social success. But he was always concerned about my mother and me. He felt guilty for leaving us for so long and found it hard to return. Then his company decided to start a new venture in Japan. After much thought, he decided to come back. He built a house here and started looking for me and my mother. He then discovered that my mother had passed away and was deeply regretful. If only he had come back sooner. Wishing to see me as soon as possible, he visited me in the hospital. Learning the truth, I ended up living in this mansion owned by my father. I briefly explained all this. By the way, my father had also looked into Tom's affair. After occasional golfing outings, Tom would go to a hostess club where he met Emily. So, this is my family home. Understand, I never heard about you having a rich father all of a sudden, Tom murmured in a big voice. So, if you have so much money, will you come to the club where I work? Emily quickly tried to hand her business card to my father. True to the type of woman Tom would choose, she was incredibly bold. But my father stopped her immediately. I'm sorry, but I make it a point not to visit cheap imitation bars. What? Emily was speechless. My father frequented some establishments for work, but only the finest, high-end places. He would never go to a cheap club like where Emily works. Besides, I don't have money. Catherine inherited everything already. To the puzzled expressions of Tom and Emily, my father casually replied, around $800 million. It's the least I can do to make up for leaving her alone all this time. The two of them were dumbfounded, their mouths agape. I've heard about you from Catherine, especially your insults, my father continued. She worked hard, scrimping and saving from her meager salary to buy that house. She also did her best with household chores. Having no mother, she probably didn't get a chance to learn from anyone, yet you disparaged her and trampled on her feelings. I can't forgive you, especially when you cheated on her while you were married. If it comes to that, I can sue you. But Tom attempted to interject. Catherine's struggles were partly my fault too, my father continued, cutting him off. You mocked me for being poor and for not having parents. I'm fed up with someone like you who lacks compassion. Never come back to this house again. Goodbye. Is there anything else you need? If you're done, can you leave? I added firmly. Ha! Help! Tom and Emily screamed and ran away. Watching them go, my dad and I shared a laugh. It had been a while since I'd laughed so much. I knew I probably wouldn't see those two again. I could finally live in peace. Later, I found out about their subsequent misfortune. A typhoon hit the region where Tom and Emily lived, bringing heavy rain that flooded houses near overflowing rivers. Fortunately, my area wasn't affected, but their house suffered severe damage. Tom and Emily fled, but their expensive furniture, brand new golf equipment, and Emily's luxury items were all waterlogged. The house's pillars had rotted from being soaked for so long. With no place to stay, the two seemed to live in shelters for a while. Tom's family home was far away, and Emily's family situation was worse. Her parents were gambling addicts living in a tiny apartment. Emily, who worked at a nightclub, spent all her money. Tom was also in debt from buying expensive things. Tom, who relied on women for money, was now in trouble. The two, having no other options, had to move into a cheap apartment near the station that he had once told me about. It was ironic that Tom, who once mocked others, ended up living there. What you do to others will come back to you, I reflected. Unless they truly repent, they won't find peace. Meanwhile, I was thinking of job hunting since leaving my previous company. When I talked to my father about this, he offered me a position at his company. The job is in sales like before, and it's fulfilling. I'm still learning, but I work hard every day to be valuable. At my father's mansion, we often host home parties for business associates. My sales experience helps, and I can talk freely with anyone. I plan to work abroad in the future, so I'm also studying English. My father often tells me, "You look livelier now compared to when we reunited." It feels like a lie that I used to be so irritated every day when I was with Tom. Life is unpredictable, I concluded. Even if times are tough, they won't last forever. If you keep looking forward, someone will always be watching over you. I believe that, and I want to keep living brightly.